Yes.
Oh my gosh, that's great.
Because you're beautiful. Yes, Madam Mayor, I believe we're ready. Thank you.
We will bring the regular assembly meeting to order for July 10th, 2023. Ms. Tree, will you lead us in the flag salute?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sorry, I had to fix these. Too many years at the fire hall.
Thank you.
All right, with that, Ms. Tree, will you give us the land acknowledgement?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We would like to acknowledge that the city and borough of Juneau is on unceded Tlingit land and wish to honor the indigenous people of this land. For more than 10,000 years, Alaska Native people have been and continue to be integral to the well-being of our community. We are grateful to be in this place, a part of this community, and to honor the culture, traditions, and resilience of the Tlingit people. Gunachish.
Thank you, Ms. Tree. And Madam Clerk, will you call roll, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's looking like a beautiful full house here in pink. Mr. Bryson,
Present.
Ms. Hughes Candies,
Here.
Ms. Treem,
Here.
Wahogaduck.
Here.
Ms. Wall,
Present.
Mr. Smith,
Here.
Ms. Hale,
Here.
Ms. Gladysevsky,
Here.
and Mayor Weldon.
Here.
The quorum is present.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. So our special order of business today is a proclamation honoring Wayne Stevens.
Yeah.
And look at the audience you have for that. Come on up so you don't have to sit in the front row. So this is a proclamation honoring Wayne Stevens. Whereas Wayne Stevens is transitioning into retirement from his role as president and CEO of the United Way of Southeast Alaska after serving at the helm of the organization since 2011. And whereas Wayne has lived for over 4 decades in Alaska, from Utogavik, close enough? How to say that? Yeah, to Juneau, and from Kenai to Kodiak. And whereas Wayne has dedicated his life to serving the communities in which he resides, and whereas Wayne's community service in Alaska has been so extensive that it's difficult to mention even a small fraction of it in this proclamation. And whereas Wayne served as a Kodiak Island Borough Assembly member for 11 years, and whereas he served as a board member and chair of the Providence Kodiak Island Medical Center, and whereas Wayne served on community advisory boards for Alaska Airlines, Wells Fargo, and the Alyeska Pipeline Service Company. And whereas Wayne has served on a variety of other boards and commissions, including the Marine Transportation Advisory Board for the Alaska Marine Highway System and the Alaska Healthcare Commission. Now, therefore, I, Beth A. Weldon, Mayor of the City and Borough of Juneau, Alaska, on behalf of the City and Borough Assembly, do hereby issue this proclamation honoring Wayne Stevens for his years-long commitment to local, regional, and statewide community service in this great state of Alaska.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the Assembly. I'm truly humbled, honored, and appreciative of the recognition. But when I started this some 50 plus years ago. I didn't think that I was doing this for this kind of stuff. I was just doing my job. And so thank you very much for the acknowledgement. It's truly appreciated. Thank you for acknowledging. And it's sitting there, it's like going to the principal's office. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Much appreciated.
Although with that, we will go to our special order of business. Madam Clerk, will you give instruction for public participation?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So as for every assembly meeting, regular assembly meeting, you can sign up by 4 p.m. to testify via Zoom. We have had some people do that. Otherwise, anyone in the room, there is the sign up sheet at the back of the room if you haven't already done so for either non-agenda items or anything up on public testimony. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. With that, we'll go to approval of minutes. Ms. Hale.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have reviewed and request approval of the 2023-109 regular assembly meeting minutes, the 2023-131 special assembly meeting minutes, 2023-06-27 special assembly meeting minutes, and the 2023-06-28 special assembly meeting minutes, and I ask for unanimous consent.
Thank you very much for doing all that, Ms. Hale. Any objections? Seeing none, those minutes are approved. Any agenda changes, Mr. Manager?
No changes, thank you.
All right, now we're looking for public participation on non-agenda items. I have nobody on Zoom signed up. All right, looks. Yep, I'm just gonna say, it looks like the only one we have signed up for is David Ignell. So if you'll come up to the mic over here and press the little button on the bottom and turn it to green. Please state your name and area town you live in for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. My name is David Ignell. I live in West Juneau. So last month I was here and I told all of you about a really appalling case of systemic racism in Juneau's criminal justice system. Since then, only Mr. Smith has shown any concern. You have a committee that's dedicated to the review of systemic racism. I've heard nothing from them. That's a problem. 2.5 weeks ago, the Tribal Council of Hoonah Indian Association passed a unanimous resolution in support of its tribal member who I talked about a month ago, Thomas Jack Jr. He was a victim of systemic racism. Their resolution concludes by asking municipalities for support. You've all been provided a copy of that tribal resolution. Until late this afternoon, none of you had responded to that. And I will say that I got a response from member Hugh Scandis, but there was no commitment to work with us to do something about it. I want to read to you a few quotes, the perspective of some well-known people of what your silence means. First one is Martin Luther King Jr. There comes a time when silence is betrayal. Next one is Desmond Tutu. If you are neutral in situations of injustice, you have chosen the side of the oppressor. Third, Rachel Cargill. I don't want your love and light if it doesn't come with solidarity and action. I have no interest in passive empathy. Next, Bell Hooks. All our silences in the face of racial assault are acts of complicity. And finally, Gracilia Calgar. Silence is not merely complacency, it is an endorsement of racism. So that's the bottom line here. Continue to remain silent on this issue as you have in the last month, and each of you endorses racism. Please do the right thing and pass a unanimous resolution supporting the tribe's resolution. Pledge your support in eradicating systemic racism in Juneau's criminal justice system. Do you have any questions for me?
Do you have any questions for Mr. Goodell? Nope. Thank you for your
Thank
testimony.
you.
And I apologize. We also have Steve Banky.
Thank you. I'm Steve Benke, live out in Thane. I'm wearing my renewable Juneau hat this evening. And I've been asked by Zach Brown from the Tideland Institute to hand you folks a copy of a book that he highly recommends to municipal leaders. It's called The Big Fix: 7 Practical Steps to Save Our Planet. And it's Zach is a climate scientist, educator with the Tidelands Institute in Gustavus. Looked at the book, gave me a copy, asked me to share it with you folks. It's a good, he's enclosed a letter in it that kind of explains his interest and why he thinks you folks would be interested in it. Lots of us and lots of you folks have all done your personal bit for climate action. And are doing a lot of things as a entity, the CBJ is, but there's kind of a lot to do on that side of things. And this book has a list of several items that really are pretty relevant to the CBJ. Chapter 3 focuses on fixing buildings. Chapter 4 focuses on fixing transportation. Chapter 5 focuses on urban places and how to fix urban places and recommendations for that. Some of the things you're already doing, and then there's a number of things that we haven't really addressed yet, like updating, modernizing our energy codes, our building codes, things that are decades old and really haven't been kept up with. I really, really like the book's approach, which is kind of like okay, now what do we do? Kind of pragmatism. It's not gloom and doom, and it's not looking out to imaginary technologies that are coming along. It's basically focuses on real stuff that communities are doing and that we're doing some of and that we could do better at. So if you get a chance to read chapters 3, 4, 5, and then pass it along to somebody else who could use it. And I think there's a copy for the city manager, and I thought maybe he could pass it along to his successor when that comes about. And maybe some of you who are going off could pass it along to your successors. But thank you very much. And again, I appreciated Zach bringing it to my attention and thought it'd be good to share with you folks.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Banky? Ms. Glaszewski.
Just fortunate we have something called the Juneau Commission on Sustainability who works and reviews a lot of that for the assembly. So perhaps they would be interested in looking at it.
I'll make sure that that they see it as well.
Thank you
Thank
for your testimony. Mr. Quayle, are you on non-agenda? Okay, come on up. Please state your name and area of town you live in for the record, and you have 3 minutes. Madam Clerk, are you timing? Okay.
Push the button.
William Quayle, 415 Willoughby, downtown. This is about my business, Southeast Alaska Express Pedicab. So far, to date, I've only pulled in $4,000, and my expenses are at $6,000. The other day, I got a letter from George Sheff that I cannot go through Marina Park with my pedicab. All I want to do is try and get a permission to go through Marina Park. Now, Docks and harbors contributes considerable through trash pickup. If they stop doing trash pickup, Marina Park will be a disaster in 2 days. Okay. All I'm asking is I get able to take people or go through it just to get to the heart, to the site seawalk. Okay. And he's squeezing me for $500 that I don't want to pay yet. In fact, I won't see any profit for this season till the end of August. They're lucky I decided to go in business this year. Okay. It was just, because the insurance was like $5,300. It's just astronomical just to get people to be able to sit in my pedicaps. I don't consider it, it's not too much to ask, is be able to just be able to go travel through the park, which is just a little triangle. I've been going around it and I've been threatened to get a $300 fine if I do, get caught. And I'm not into doing that. I like holding on to my insurance license, and when I just renewed it this past year. But what I asking from the assembly is the ability to be able to go through Marina Park. Okay.
All right, any questions for Mr. Quayle? Ms. Wall?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So what I'm understanding is maybe you have been told you need a permit to drive through. Are there other places that you take your pedicab that you have to purchase a permit for on the docks or other places?
Park, but I don't go through it. And I don't even set foot on the property. Right now, because there is so much congestion in Marina Park, it is really inconvenient to, not being able to go through it.
Okay. Any further questions? Thank you for your testimony today. All right, that's all I see for non-agenda items. So that will bring us to the consent agenda. Is there any public requests for consent agenda changes other than ordinances for introduction? Is there any assembly requests for consent agenda changes? Ms. Gladysevsky.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would move the consent agenda as written, including the item regarding the off-road park that I know many people are here to talk about. And I ask for unanimous consent.
Any objection? Seeing none, the consent agenda is passed, and we appreciate the General Off-Road Vehicle Association for showing up tonight and participating in this. That's it.
You won't be offended if you leave.
Yes, we won't. All right, that brings us to public hearing. Item 16, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Ordinance 2023-26C, an ordinance creating a short-term rental registration program and providing for a penalty.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Manager.
This ordinance requires owners to register the location and occupancy details of each individual short-term rental unit that they operate. Registration of individual short-term rental units has two objectives. First, registration will assist the CBJ Sales Tax Office in ensuring compliance with sales tax and hotel bed tax requirements. And second, registration will give the assembly and the public greater visibility into the number, type, and geographical distribution of short-term rental units. This ordinance does not require registration for any dwelling units rented for longer than 30 days. This ordinance also provides for a penalty if owners publicly list short-term rental units without having properly registered those units with CBJ. Assembly Committee of the Whole considered this ordinance at its June 26, 2023 meeting and forwarded version B as amended to the Assembly for action. I recommend you adopt this ordinance.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. With that, we'll go to public testimony, starting with Zoom. Please bring over Kelly Ballou. If she is there. Yep. Ms. Ballou, please state your name and area of town you live in for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Okay, I'm Kelly Ballou and I live in Salmon Creek. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. Okay. I'm a real estate broker. I offer both long and short-term rentals for clients and also for my own properties. Please consider amending the definition of operator to eliminate confusion for a property owner who hires an agent to manage their property for them. It should be the agent who is the operator, who collects the taxes and who is responsible for compliance with the ordinance. If the property owner who pays me also has to have his own business license and tax account and also do quarterly reporting and annual registration renewals, then that takes all the value out of the service that I'm selling them. I won't be worth much if they have to do all the work. My intention is to be in compliance with every business requirement that exists. This ordinance directly affects my primary income source. If people can't hire me to do it for them, I will most certainly lose business and suffer financially. Alaska law requires that a property manager who manages properties other than their own must have a professional real estate license as well as a business license. The law also requires any property owner who offers their property for rent to have a license, unless they are offering their property for rent through a licensed real estate professional. This means that property owners property owners don't have to have a business license if they hire a professional like me to rent out their properties for them. The value that we provide as real estate professionals is that we can offer the service to our clients and expertise. They pay us for that, as well as the infrastructure that we have in place, including the business license and tax account. If this wording is left as is, any future city compliance officer who is hired will be enforcing this ordinance as they interpret the language, not necessarily as today's intent. I know that your intention today isn't to eliminate a service from the community, but that is how the language can be interpreted. The property owner should not be required to obtain a business license and a tax account if they hire an agent who has it in place for them. And that's really all I have to say. I just want this to be clarified so that I can stay in business.
All right, thank you. Any questions for Ms. Ballou? Ms. Wall?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Ms. Ballou, for being here. So right now, when you're managing a short-term rental, do you collect hotel bed tax on behalf of the property owner and then provide that to the city? Yes, you're nodding your head, yes.
Yes, absolutely. I collect it, I keep it in a trust account. I do the reporting for them and I pay the taxes for them. And then they do nothing. All they do is collect a check after I deduct the taxes and my commission from all the gross revenue that I collect.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Thank you, Ms. Ballou. Next, we have Lillian Petershore. Ms. Petershore, please state your name and area of town you live in for the record, and you have 3 minutes. You're still on mute. Go ahead, you're off mute, but we
Yes,
can't hear
thank
you.
And thank you. I was hoping to make myself visible. I'll ask my daughter to assist me with that. My name is Lillian.
Ms. Petershaw, we can barely hear you. Can you make yourself louder?
Yes, I can. Thank you. Is this better?
Barely.
Let's see. Volume's up.
Yes, that's much better. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for your patience. My name is Lillian Petershore, and I own a home at Herbert Place, which is near the airport. Thank you for allowing me to testify. I was born in Juneau, and apart from earning my degrees, I've lived in Juneau all my life. My husband, Steve, and I raised our family here. We were both members of the senior leadership team for the organizations we worked for. For Steve, ALNP, for me, the Forest Service. With Ryan Conero, I produced Juneau Voices. Following that, I volunteered for 2 years with CBJ on the Alaska Native Advisory Committee for the Wayfinding Signage Project, revising the contents. I've done consultant work for the school district, providing in-service training on the art of storytelling and interviewing. I presented in classrooms as a visiting elder. My connection to this community and to the land is a pivotal part of my identity. For many years, my husband and I have been searching for a ranch-style house or for property we can build a ranch-style home on. We are active seniors and we desire to age in place. Our adult children are independent and we no longer need a big family home. We put our home on the market. We have the resources to buy a home or to buy land. We have not been successful in finding a ranch-style home that is a good fit, nor have our efforts to find property to build on fared any better. Routinely, we check with Corps of Engineer, and often we find out that there's too much wetlands. In some instances, we found that the contours do not lend themselves to building a ranch. If CBJ decides to sell phase 2 and phase 3 of the Peterson development to the Tlingit-Haida Housing Authority, I urge the City Assembly to include a clause in the contract that requires prompt and substantial sustained development through the project's life. For me, prompt means at a minimum 10 houses a year, with a good proportion being for middle-income people and for active seniors who want to live independently while aging in place. The 2016 Land Use Management Plan identifies lots in Northern Tea Harbor as a potential residential properties. Currently, this land is Parks and Rec land and is undeveloped. I strongly urge the city to begin the process for transferring this land from Parks and Rec to Lands and Resources. Perhaps if the city sells Peterson, as a body, the Assembly will find the time to focus on making North Tea Harbor a residential subdivision. It saddens me that Steve and I may have to move out of Juneau to find our next home. This awareness has prompted me to provide this testimony. My daughter Alicia has also signed up to provide testimony, and she is sitting here next to me.
That's fine, but unfortunately, we're taking testimony on short-term rentals right now. So let's go to Alicia Petershore. And then if you want to say anything about short-term rentals, you can follow her.
Oh, my apologies that our testimony was on a different issue. I'm sorry, I missed that. Should I go next? My name's Alicia Peterson.
Yes, but we have you testifying on short-term rentals first.
There
So
must
if you,
be excuse me, there must be a mistake. When I called the city clerk's office this morning, I was very clear about what we were testifying on. So when you called on me, I thought it was the appropriate time to testify.
nope, that's all right. It was great testimony. It just was a little bit out of place, but so you don't have any testimony on short-term rentals, is that
No.
correct?
Correct.
Okay, we will come back to you when we go to the Tlingit-Haida ordinance. Okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so that's all I have on Zoom. So now next we have Tom Williams in the room. On City Hall.
Oh, okay.
All right, Mr. Williams, please state your name and area of town you live in for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
My name is Tom Williams. Did I get it right? Okay. Looks like I'm still challenged. My name is Tom Williams. I live in Ock Bay. First of all, I want to thank the Assembly for making some changes to the short-term rental ordinance. I was disappointed that there couldn't have been a roundtable where we could have discussed this more in detail as to the real concerns. And I'm sorry that we didn't pursue that with staff. Nobody reached out, including myself. I guess that's a lesson learned. But there are some improvements to this ordinance. But I'd also suggest 2 other improvements. One is rather minor, and I know that it's been discussed, but the first one would be to delete the section B of 6940.020, since it duplicates the section F. If you are required to make any changes to your listing within 30 days, excuse me, why are we duplicating that effort and registering annually? Because it's always going to be updated. But the most important thing that I think is important, and it was included in the draft, so this recommended draft that I sent you a couple of weeks ago before the committee of the whole meeting, was to make a provision in there that basically said portions of the information from the short-term rentals registration is confidential. The sales tax office is administering this. And while we may have a separate program, it's sort of an end run about disclosing who is subject to sales tax and room taxes, because the only ones that are required to register are the individuals that have short-term rentals. And I think making that confidential, as well as, but still allowing consolidated information that didn't identify my name, somebody else's name as what their specific units are and what they rent for, will still provide you as the Assembly, if you really need it, some statistical information as to the nature and the distribution and what is out there relative to short-term rentals. I will say that you probably ought to, I mean, if you're really going to do an analysis, you probably ought to find out the long-term rentals as well, so that you can make a comparison as to what is happening with both versus the other. I think that confidentiality is important, and for 2 reasons. Because when I first read this ordinance and heard about it, I was concerned about 2 different things. One, that all of a sudden the CDD would and or the Planning Commission would start to say, well, you're not zoned right. We have to clamp down on short-term rentals, which I think is solving a problem that doesn't exist. The second thing is that with identifying all this information to a specific individual, that I think there's the opportunity for the assessor to jump in and start to say, well, your value of your home is much higher, and target short-term rentals. But I think that can be solved.
Mr. Williams, unfortunately, your 3 minutes is done.
Unfortunate for me, fortunate for you. Thank you very much.
Any questions for Mr. Williams? Ms. Hale.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Williams, when you talk about keeping the information confidential, are you concerned that somebody could do a information request from the city and learn about their neighbors, or is it just you want this information confidential internally?
Mr. Williams.
Madam Mayor, Madam Hale, I wanted to, my concern is that the city is going to start targeting short-term rentals. That's my concern. And again, it's just the neighbor, or it's just the address, the individuals that contact, or not the contact because you get rid of that, but the information that talks about who has these, because then there's no way to target that. You know, the information that's being requested here, I mean, you guys can all, the manager, the sales tax office can go find everything that you're requesting on my website. Everything that this ordinance includes, everything. and especially if my sales tax number. And again,
you.
originally I thought this was a sales tax issue, but I'm afraid it's much more as quoted as the manager quoted in the paper.
All right, thank you for your testimony. Mr. Smith, sorry.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to do this now before we get too far into this, and just for full disclosure, I do use my primary home seasonally as a short-term rental. I want to disclose that. I've been advised by municipal attorneys that due to the broad nature of the ordinance, and there's anyway, it's more general in nature, so I don't need to recuse myself, but I wanted to put that on the record now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Next we have Ms. Dulabon, sorry. Come on up. Please state your name and area of town in for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Dawn Dooley-Bon, I am in Douglas. I want to start by saying after the last assembly meeting, I was approached about doing kind of like a roundtable or a discussion or something to get my insight for being an Airbnb host. And I did the same week that the assembly happened. I reached out, I provided contact information. I was gotten back to 1 business day before the committee of the whole meeting. I also was given some options for that weekend to meet and discuss. I reached out, nobody got back to me. So to continue with my statement, I am a small business owner in the CBJ. I pay taxes, I have a business license, I supply a valuable and needed service in running an Airbnb here. I guide travelers to local businesses, I advise them on culture and environmental issues. I allow them the option of coming and spending several days in our beautiful city that may not be available to them if the only lodging option was a poor to mediocre hotel room that costs $300 to $400 a night. I'm appalled at the city assembly targeting small businesses like mine as a scapegoat to the housing crisis in the CBJ. I say this because processing the registration and sleuthing out dishonest people that don't pay their taxes will cost the taxpayers more than it will ever recover in lost tax revenue. I say target because the city will start with a registration, but to what end? Will the city take away needed lodging? Will the city restrict my income because it is unable to find viable housing options with new builds, creative repurposing of existing unused and decaying buildings? Will the city continue to restrict needed lodging for events that bring people to town that can build our infrastructure away from the cruise revenue? Is the city gonna hunt down everyone that opens their home for people coming for gold medal, for celebration, for Ironman? As the city showed when they hired an investigator to get the estimate of existing Airbnbs and Airbnbs, a registration is not necessary to track Airbnbs in Veribos and Juneau. We all know that this is just a step towards future restrictions, despite the numerous testimonies stating valid reasons why short-term rental owners cannot or will not do long-term rentals for Juneau residents. I feel like this move by the assembly is just another in a growing list of actions showing that the city does not support local and/or small businesses, since big brand hotels will not be required to register, despite the fact that one hotel could easily be converted into dozens of studios or 1-bedroom apartments. Likewise, the Terry Miller building could be converted and used for year-round residents instead of just legislative staff. Actions such as these by the city are disappointing to those of us that short-term rentals are a primary income, and I urge the city to stop targeting short-term rental owners and find actual viable housing options.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Doolabon? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony tonight. Next, we have Dale Anderson. Please state your name and area and town you live in for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My name is Dale Anderson and I live on Oak Lake. I've owned and operated Oak Lake Bed and Breakfast for 27 years, the longest continuous of any bed and breakfast in Juneau. We've been operating since 1997 without any violations or complaints from our neighbors or CBJ. I heard that CBJ government is pushing through this new rule that is designed to catch bad guys who are running their business without collecting or forwarding required taxes onto CBJ. I find it objectionable that you are placing these onerous restrictions on my business that I have totally run above board according to CBJ guidelines in order to catch the bad guys, creating another hurdle for me to climb over with the threat of penalties is anti-commerce. It's time the assembly starts backing small businesses instead of creating problems for them. This has been recognized as a slippery slope by one of your members. I hardly agree with that opinion. Once the door is opened, what will the further ordinance be considered? Will we be targeted? As you know, government has a way of incremental growth and intrusion into our personal lives and commercial enterprises, and I'm really concerned about that. I would hope for a friendly amendment to at least change. This is probably going to go through, so I'm accepting the inevitable probably here, but I would hope for a friendly amendment to change the monthly, quarterly reporting along with our tax reporting. It's just one more trip up that could happen if we have to do it monthly. I ask you to simplify the process. That could have been done by the assembly, asking for participation from the industry at the beginning of all this discussion. We were not notified. There was no invitations to sit down around a table and have some ideas thrown out. And I just don't think that's a good way of running your business, which is representing us as residents of this city. One other question I had is, do I report 5 units or 1 unit at my bed and breakfast? This whole thing is very onerous to me because it doesn't end tonight with a simple vote. What happens next is my big question. And it's the way that CBJ is run. And we don't have any say in it. You guys are sitting up there, which I had an opportunity to sit up there years ago. But you're just pushing this through without our industry input. And that's very, very troubling to me. You saw that 4-wheelers tonight, they all left happy because they've been able to sit down with you and work out all the issues.
Mr. Anderson, unfortunately, your 3 minutes
Yeah.
are up.
Unfortunately for me.
Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Is there a bed and breakfast association or anyway, is there a group of an organized group that we could, that our city staff could communicate more with?
There used to be, but there's none existing at this point.
Okay, so folks are kind of just independent doing anything. Okay, thank you.
We would have been happy to step up as an association.
All right, thank you for your testimony. And that's the last I have for short-term rental unless I miss somebody. Come on up. Please state your name and area of town you live in for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Adam Dordia. I live in Douglas most of the year, West Juneau the other part of the year. I've owned and operated short-term rentals in Juneau for approximately 6 years. About 1.5 years ago, I made it my primary income and I manage for others as well. But like everyone, I share the concern that this is just the first step. And if it's not, I question why the assembly didn't reach out to VRBO and Airbnb years ago, like Anchorage did, to collect taxes on their behalf. So these and many other municipalities across the country have had taxes collected for 3, 4, 5 years automatically on the apps and without having any issues with the compliance. 100% of payments are made, and why didn't we go through those processes if this was truly just about tax? And if it's not, why have I been paying taxes properly for 6 or 7 years and my competitors haven't been. So I think there's an equity question for those who aren't. So I think there should be something in place to make sure others are paying taxes. But there was a simple solution that could have been done many years ago, and I just don't understand why we're going through this process when there's a much simpler one already there. That's all I have.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, can you spell your last name for us,
Yeah,
please?
Dordea, Dordea.
All right, thank you for your testimony. Although, okay, so with that, we will bring it back to the assembly for questions first. Because I think there's a few people that still have questions on this before we go to, I have some amendments to give, but let's go start with questions. Who has questions? Ms. Glass.
I'll just ask a question about the taxes. We talked about Airbnb collecting taxes multiple times. And the testimony we heard today is different than we've heard before about Airbnb collecting taxes. So what do you know about that, Mr. Barr?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Through the mayor, thank you, Deputy Mayor. We are still working with Airbnb and VRBO. We do desire to have short-term rental organizations, platforms collect taxes on our behalf. That's still a work in progress.
If I follow up,
go ahead.
It's been a work in progress for a while. So are they not getting back to you? Are they what?
Mr. Barr.
Through the mayor, thank you. I'd have to check with the finance department. I'm not quite sure what the last communication we've had with them on that topic. I do know that after our first assembly meeting on this topic, we did have an individual from Airbnb reach out to us. So we have a new contact that hopefully might bear some new fruit on that subject.
Mr. Bryson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I know that we had talked about just bed and breakfast that were here. I thought there was some level of exemption. Could somebody just remind me what category bed and breakfasts were in? Were they the same as a hotel?
Who wants to tackle that one? Mr. Barr is looking for you. No, hotels are there, but not bed and breakfast. Hotels are there.
I'm just trying to make an amendment to take it out.
Do you know the answer? Okay, Ms. Dream, sorry.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I did make an amendment to exempt bed and breakfasts that have conditional use permits in the COW, and that amendment failed, just to answer Mr. Bryson's question.
Okay. All right, Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And just while we're chiming in, I did look into and have spoken to the previous finance director about them working with Airbnb, and my sense is that they had pursued it and they were just not getting fruitful responses from the platforms. And they had pursued it, and anyway, have now had a new contact. So maybe there's opportunity there. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Smith. Ms. Dream.
And to add on that one, through the AML Housing Task Force, we've heard that same thing from other communities, that they don't get a response from Airbnb, or get very unhelpful responses about having them collect and remit sales tax.
All right, thank you. Seeing no questions, so I have a couple of questions. Ms. Lane, I asked you this earlier and had to do with the confidential information. Could you talk about that a little bit? There's very there's a limitation to the information that we can hold confidential. Is that correct? Could you speak on that?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Normally, most documents with the CBJ are open to public records. And to some extent, some of these documents may be open to public records, but what me and Mr. Barr have actually been looking at over here is CBJ code, which is 6905070, that talks about periodic returns, reports and information filed with the CBJ. So this is like for the sales tax office. And in code, it does talk about a certain level of confidentiality for some of those records. Mr. Barr, would you like to speak more on that?
But
please?
those have to do with financial records rather than like what they have, so, correct?
Right, this is all sales tax related, so this isn't.
So in this
there's other
particular,
things that-
so in this particular case, I could see that someone owned an Airbnb, but I wouldn't be able to see what they charge.
Right, you wouldn't see. what they
Unless you went to
charge,
a-
their right, their
Yeah.
revenues, potentially some of the information could be redacted, like. I mean, I can imagine we do a lot of public records requests where we redact personal information that they wouldn't want to get out there.
Right. Mr. Bard, do you have anything to add? Okay, and then Mr. Bard, I do have a question for you because this came up and there was some confusion there. If I have a unit that goes in and out of short-term rental, it's a short-term rental for a while, and then for the summer I rent it seasonally, so that becomes a long-term. Do I have to submit a change in information?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. No, this ordinance would not require that.
All right, Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Barr, would you speak to the need for having the change information? I mean, at first it had been every 10 days. Folks have suggested potentially going to quarterly to kind of align with sales tax filings. Could you speak to what that would, anyway, how that would impact the goals of the ordinance?
Mr. Barr.
Through the mayor, thank you, Mr. Smith. The change in information data is primarily there to keep our presumed our future database on this current, which is what our vendor would use to help us manage compliance efforts. So there are 3 pieces of information that we would request, or that this ordinance would require a change of information notice for. That's let me find it specifically here.
Page 3 of 5.
Yep. So the business license number, the name, address, phone number, and email address for the operator or operator's designee, and then the general description of the short-term residential unit, address, property type, number of bedrooms and capacity. So when those things change, that compromises our ability to, our contractor's ability rather, to search Airbnb, VRBO, other platforms, and help us check sales tax compliance. So that's really the reason, the first reason anyway, that comes to mind for why we are asking for that information to be kept up to date.
All right, you good, Mr. Smith? Mr. Bryson?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wanted to go to definitions, operator. And I think one of the people that testified, they were concerned that they want to be able to fill out the paperwork or fill out the registration.
If
think
you
this-
can be patient, there's an amendment, but I was going to questions right now.
I can be paid.
Yeah. I don't think it was a question. I think it was heading for an amendment, but okay.
My question was, can an individual who is wanting to use the services of, let's say, Miss Ballou, can Miss Ballou fill out that registration and not the actual person that owns the property that they're trying to contact somebody so that they don't have to mess with it? Is your
That-
amendment going to fix that language?
Yes.
All right.
I would still like to hear the answer to the
Mr. Bond.
question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This might get a little complicated. Our general, we get questions in the sales tax office about who needs to register with the sales tax office. In general, the answer is the owner of the business, right? The owner, in this case, the owner of the short-term rental that is producing revenue. There are times when, such in the case of Miss Ballou, where a property manager is the individual who is collecting revenue on behalf of the owner. Usually still, in those cases, it is still the owner whom we seek information on to register for sales tax filing. And that is because ultimately it is the owner's responsibility who's collecting that revenue to remit sales tax to the city. There are some circumstances where the owner is receiving a commission rather than the property manager. So the property manager is collecting the revenue. The property manager is reporting that revenue on their IRS filings. Property manager is also reporting those business deductions on their IRS filings. In that scenario, it is our current guidance that the property manager then files on behalf of it. And we're just following federal practice there. And as this ordinance is currently written, the operator is the owner and not a property manager who needs to file with the sales tax office.
Sorry for cutting you off, Mr. Bryson. Ms. Wall and Ms. Gladishevsky.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Following up on that, is what you just described a practice or a policy? Is that written down somewhere, or is it just, I mean, in our code, or is that just something that I'm sorry, I was not on, I guess my microphone was not on, so I'll repeat the question. My question was, is what you just described a practice or actually written down in our code as a policy?
Mr. Barr.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I believe, I'm not 100% sure, but I believe it is simply a practice.
Okay, Madam Clerk, would you fix that, please? Ms. Gladishevsky.
So the same issue. Oh, it went off. I pressed the button. Okay. The owner is responsible for the owner's property is by this logic. If the owner wants to hire Mary Smith to do this for them, what in the ordinance, does anything in the ordinance need to change? Or will you ask Mary, if it says the operator's Mary Smith's got this business, Mary Smith's doing the whole thing. She's responsible for filing all the papers. How do we allow that to happen? How do we allow the business for Mary Smith to continue? Does this ordinance do anything to hamper that?
Mr. Barr.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Deputy Mayor, I think the mayor has an amendment to address that.
So
that issue.
Yes, it does hamper it. Because it needs to be changed.
Lacking the mayor's amendment, yeah, I believe the answer is yes.
Okay, great.
Okay, well, let's go to the first amendment. Oh. Yeah.
It was moved, right?
Yeah. Ms. Treem.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move ordinance 2023-26C as in Carol.
Okay, I will take over because the Madam Mayor has some amendments, and if anyone has amendments, Madam Mayor has some. Go ahead.
I'll object for purposes of an amendment. Okay, so if we go to amendment number 1, and it goes hand in hand with amendment number 2.
Sorry, I don't have that.
You should have been handed it to you when you sat down.
Negative.
Okay. Okay. So under definition, what we are doing is it says operator means a person, firm, corporation, or other designated legal entity. So that is a property manager who, and we got rid of who furnishes on the advice of the attorney. And we got rid of the last phrase there that says whether acting directly or through an agent or employee. That means the operator is the person actually collecting the rent, paying the taxes, etc. And then just to be sure, but I'm not moving the Second Amendment. I'm just letting you know to make it quite clear that the property owner was still responsible for taxes. We add an amendment, the Second Amendment. So, but right now it would be easier just to look at the First Amendment.
Okay, you see any questions about the First Amendment?
I do have.
Ms. Hughes Candies.
Yes, sorry. Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have a question on that because the 1 and 2 being linked that's exactly where I was trying to decide which piece of this, comparing this side by side with the ordinance as it's currently written. So by adding, we already have legal entity in there. So by adding designated legal entity, you are trying to make that more clear that I might be hiring someone, even though in our ordinance, it already says legal entity. Okay, I think I'm clear on this piece. So this is really, I'll look at two separately, but this
Question.
is to address what we just discussed. Okay, I have no questions at this time.
Okay, other questions on this amendment? Wahala Gidak.
This is a question probably for Mr. Barr, Mr. Watt. I'm just wondering, in terms of complication for things that come through the door, you're getting an application from maybe somebody who's working on behalf of the owner, but the taxes are being filed or being paid by the owner. Is that going to cause an issue on the end of accounting saying, well, we got this payment, but it doesn't match the name that's on the file for said property because it's a different person who's operating it?
Mr. Barr or whoever's, yep. Mr. Barr.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. I'll say that that's a great question. Thank you. Sales tax filing and registration and figuring out those nuances and details is complicated. I do think we would be able to handle that situation. It sometimes requires a little bit of back and forth between the business owner and or operator and our sales tax office, but we have good staff there. I think that's a situation that they could care for. And if it wasn't, and this past night, we would certainly come back to you and say, oh, we were wrong. Here's how we propose to perhaps address that.
Okay, other questions, comments? Ms. Hale.
I know we're going to get to the second amendment
Sorry.
shortly. But just because these are somewhat linked, I'm just trying to understand the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment is saying that the property owner is responsible for all that money being paid, but it doesn't say that they have to pay it. Is that correct, Madam Mayor?
Madam Attorney? Are you asking a question about the second one?
Yes, and the reason I'm asking it because I feel like it's related in some ways to what Wahala Gidak asked, right? Because this
Ms. Lane.
one, yes.
Ms. Lane.
Thank you. Yes, that's what it's saying. So it's to so that, like the property manager who testified, talking about her business, she's the, maybe she wants to be the one remitting everything, but the owner is still going to be responsible if things don't get remitted because it's their property and they're the ones that are ultimately going to be held responsible.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor.
I think Ms. Lane just kind of explained it. That's why they're linked together. The operator can, so the person doesn't have to be the owner, but at the same time, the compromise was then we specifically spell out the owner is ultimately responsible, but the designated legal entity in this case does the business license, files the taxes, collects the rents, and does everything for the owner. But if something happened and she or he defaulted for some reason, we would go after the asset as a CBJ, and then they would have to in turn sue their designated legal entity to collect that back.
Okay, I have a question for Ms. Lane regarding the changes here. Designated legal entity, what does that do for you? What is that? And the taking out whether acting directly or through an agent or an employee, why is that advantageous? Ms. Lane?
Yes.
Because an operator, I can own my home and I'm the operator and I'm acting directly. Is that last clause was never necessary or what's the deal, Ms. Lane?
It is a little repetitive, whether acting directly or through an agent or an employee. It would not be repetitive if Madam Mayor wasn't proposing the Second Amendment, which is clarifying that the owner is ultimately responsible.
Okay.
So they are connected in that way. So you don't need that as much as you needed it.
Okay, and the designated, you just wanted an extra word in there. What was that point? What's the point? of that?
So Madam Mayor, also proposed this one, the designated legal entity that also allows for that property management. They are the designated person that's filing things. They're the designated
That's
person that's.
If
They have a legal
Yeah.
relationship.
that's, I don't know that you needed, it, but if you're good, I'm all right. Any more questions or comments, any objection to the motion? Ms. Hughes Candies?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would object to the amendment. I think I understand what she's setting out to do, and I understand the desire to make what we're hearing is onerous for some property owners, less onerous. And we heard from testimony tonight of someone who fears that it will make their business less valuable. I will say that the example that Mr. Barr provided, where what is currently in policy right now, or practice, not policy, makes it clear to me that if I, Alicia, own a house and I hire someone else to be my property manager, I'm still getting the value from the house. So I am still, whether I hire someone, it is still my business. And then I am just making my business run more efficiently for me. So what this change really is doing is that the fear is that I'm telling you that I use a management technique that makes my business more efficient for me. And we're now talking about changing the ordinance so that that might not be weakened. I will say, while I certainly don't want to set out to weaken anyone's business, but if someone is financially benefiting from renting out their property as the owner, I don't, when I look at this ordinance, see something that's terribly onerous. If it were more steps, I would be more open to this. But the steps that they will be required to take, I don't think is a huge lift. And I think you'll probably hear me say this again later this evening, perhaps. But the balance of this is we sent this back to committee. And I think for the next steps, we want to, of course, be listening to the industry and making those amendments where we can. Some of the amendments that we made in the committee of the whole were because people sent them to us because they thought they would improve it. And I do think it improved it. But on the other side of that is that we have a housing problem. And so I feel like we're starting to get a little bit lost into how do we make this the smoothest ordinance possible. And I think that's not a huge ask. So I understand there are cottage industries that surround Airbnbs,
Could you keep it to the amendment?
Yes, ma'am. This is speaking to a cottage industry that surrounds Airbnb. That is someone else's business. The person who owns a house, it is their business. And I think we have to keep that balanced with the need for housing. So I will object.
More questions or more comments, objection on the motion? You had your, no? Ms. Hale?
Thank you. I do support the amendment, and in many years ago, I have a duplex, and one side was rented out, and it was rented out when I bought the duplex, and there was a property manager, and it was incredibly helpful for that property. And it wasn't short-term rentals. It was just a regular property manager. It was incredibly helpful for that property manager when I didn't even live here to actually handle everything that needed to be handled. So that happens sometimes. People have all kinds of issues going on in their lives, and that's why they hire property managers, and they pay those property managers money so that they will perform that service. So I support the amendment.
Other comments on the amendment? Ready for the vote? Okay, Madam Clerk, please call the roll. Please call the roll for the amendment.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. For amendment number 1 by the maker of the motion, Madam Mayor,
Yes.
Mr. Bryson,
Yes.
Ms. Hale,
Yes.
Ms. Hughes Candies. Mr. Smith,
Yes.
oops, Ms. Treem,
Yes.
Ms. Wall,
Yes.
Wahalgaduk,
Yes.
and Ms. Glaszewski.
Yes. So
Motion carries, no, the amendment 1 carries.
great. So Madam Mayor, do you have another amendment?
Yes, so now we're going to amendment number 2. And quite honestly, this is an amendment to make Mr. Barr happy because of the first amendment where we took that it could just be the operator instead of the owner. This is just clarifies that the property owner is ultimately responsible for the taxes.
Is there any objection to this, Ms. Tree?
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. Just a question because the copy we got includes strike through and underline.
Okay.
It was already there. What is the new part?
It's just item G. The property owner of the short-term rental is responsible for taxes, fines, fees, interest, and or penalties associated with the rental.
Okay, great. So there's understood what the amendment is, Amendment 2. Is there any objection to Amendment 2? Seeing none. Madam Mayor, do you have any more?
I have an amendment 3, and this is from someone different that said, what about if we just want to rent for Celebration or Ironman? So this is at the very bottom, line 14B, the registration required in this chapter may be waived by the assembly for area-wide community events. So if someone just wants to rent their place when we're having Celebration or Ironman and they never want to rent it again, then we have the ability to waive the requirements.
Any questions about the Ms. Hughes Candies?
Thanks, Madam Chair. Just a question for the mayor of how this would work in practice.
So when I talked with Mr. Barr about this, we would have to publicly announce that due to housing or sheltering problems with Ironman that we did, anybody that wants to open their house would not have to follow the normal rules to open up their house for just a one-time event. So.
Mr. Barr, you were wanted to say something or no? No. Okay. Ms. Treem has a question and Ms. Hale.
Thank you, Madam
Wahalgita.
Deputy Mayor. Is there anybody from finance online? Okay, I'd like to ask Ms. Flick how she sees this working in practice. I know it's something that it's an idea that came up, you know, the first time we talked about this a year ago, and I think that there was some hesitance from the finance department on having something, you know, kind of waiving the rules like this, either officially or unofficially. And I just want to know if it would be easy for them to implement, or if they would see problems with this.
Mr. Barr is someone.
Ms. Flick is on.
Ms. Flick.
Good evening. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, go ahead. We can hear you.
Excellent. Thank you for the question. I think that if there were an area-wide event, such as the Ironman that we had last year, if the assembly chose to waive the short-term registration, short-term rental registration, we could handle that. We would see an influx of listings on Airbnb or VRBO, and the availability would be just for that week or maybe 2 weeks around the event. So it would be very easy to monitor that influx. I do think it's important to recognize that waiver of the short-term rental registration is not the same as the sales tax that would still be required to be collected and remitted by those who engage in short-term rental, even it is for a single event.
Right. All right. Thanks. You're good. Ms. Hale and then Wahalgita.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Ms. Flick, because that would be my concern, is that people would think that, oh, we're gonna waive the short-term rental registration, but as I recall clearly, Mr. Rogers saying that we can't tell them you don't have to pay sales tax. So, and I think even the hotel bed tax.
That's correct.
Right.
That is correct.
That's right. So I'm not sure I'm not sure how effective this is going to be if we're still going to have, still have to pay taxes.
Walhall.
My question was asked.
Everybody understand is there any objection? Oh, Ms. Dream. Oh, my microphone went off. Ms. Dream.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. I think that I like this idea where it's coming from, but I do have concerns like the ones Ms. Hale raised. So I think that tonight I would vote no on this. And I would guess I urge the assembly to work on this one a little more. Sorry. I wish I could be there to do it, but it'll be.
Oh,
hard.
but,
Yeah, but,
Madam Deputy Mayor, I withdraw the amendment.
Okay, okay,
Sounds like it needs work.
okay, but something can happen if we get the Iron Man ever again. They don't like us. Okay, no objection. I'm done. Yeah, anybody else? Have another one?
Nope.
Madam Mayor, have the meeting back.
You can have your mic though.
Oh, I take my mic.
All right, so now we have the motion with amendments. Any further amendments? Mr. Bryson?
Madam Mayor, I wanted to just object for purpose of the statement before we took the vote. I wanted to answer a couple of questions that a couple of members of the audience had. One person raised the issue, why didn't we deal with this 3 or 4 years ago? It wasn't a problem 3 years ago. We only ran into short-term rentals as a problem approximately 12 months ago, maybe 13 months ago. Short-term rentals were not on our radar here on the assembly. They weren't causing havoc until the Iron Man really came out. And then we were running into like real problems in the community with people were literally being displaced because of the anticipation of the short-term rentals. I want to address one other thing. We've had, I don't know, probably 20 hours worth of discussion of short-term rentals. So while not everybody appreciates the information that we're discussing up here, we still have had discussion at length. So this ordinance did not just come about overnight. It wasn't just something that was quickly rammed through. We've had multiple discussions on it. And in the end, something that it's hard to get everything just perfect, but we're literally trying to protect individuals that have like this is their business. We're looking out for you guys. While I know it doesn't sound like that, but we have no registration fee. We have no penalty in here with the exception of if you don't register. I see it as a way to protect the communities from other entities that could do this and do it harm. So I just wanted to address a couple of things because we do talk about these things at great length. And I don't think we're done talking about it yet. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Bryson. Ms. Glasgow.
I might have an amendment about the number of days, the effective date. Normally, these are 30 days. We've been talking about this for a long time, but there was some discussion that the finance department couldn't do it in 30 days. 90 seems like a long time to me. Do you really need 90 days to be able to have the forms and everything? 60 days seems like to me, probably good enough. So what's the 90 days?
Mr. Bart.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. From the perspective of the finance department, we don't need more than 30 days. We can create the forms and have the program live much faster than that. From a public information perspective, I think I might advocate for more than 30 days, just to get the information out there, do a sufficient number of information releases, talk about it on the radio enough, push the information through the newspaper. But I don't think that requires 90 days.
I would make an amendment to make it 60 days. 30 days is what we normally do. I think I agree with Mr. Bard, takes more than 90 just seems excessive. And by that time, summer will be over. We won't get much data for summer. So I would move the section 4, line 18, page 505 to be 60 days.
Ms. Hale.
Thank you. Can I speak to my objection?
Yes, you may.
Thank you. We have to deal with timing a lot, and I just know that right now, and for the next at least 60 days, people are going to be very busy managing their B&Bs and their bed and breakfast. So I would I understand where you're coming from, but I would go for 90 days because that will put it into October. That will make outreach more effective. I mean, it's July right now, so we'd have August, September, October. Otherwise, this would hit kind of early September when people are just wrapping up a very busy season. So I would object.
Any further comment? Walgadot.
And I have a question for the maker of the motion. So this is intended to make it easier for us to for staff to be able to get this notification out to the public, but you're making it a permanent change for the entirety of this ordinance. So from here on out, it's going to be a 90-day time for anybody to submit their information once they open up a short-term rental.
No, the intent of this, the ordinance is not effective. The way it's written now, it's not effective for 90 days, so nobody has to register until 90 days from now. I'm saying that 60 days from now is enough time. Normally it's 30 days to something be effective. So in 60 days, the staff will have enough time to do outreach on this, double the time they normally have. And then people would have to register. And I just would like to get some summer data for this year. Otherwise, if we make it 90, then it's in October and we won't get summer data. And so that's all. I was just hoping to get some data for this summer. And if we wait, it won't be till next summer. And I'm, not gonna, that's all. Mr. Bryson.
Sorry.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm going to have to side with Ms. Hale on that. Asking any business owner to do something extra and new during the summer tourist season, that would side on the onerous side. I mean, that's just, most places right now are still struggling with the employment situation. This is the first year that is at 100%. It seems like it's at 110%. So we're going to get lots of data from this. Doing it at the end of this season would be a more favorable thing for the business community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bryson. Any further comment? I'll object also for the same reason that Mr. Bryson and Ms. Hale said. Madam Clerk, we have an amendment and objection.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So to change the effective date amendment, to change the effective date from the normal 30 days to 60 days for this ordinance, to the maker of the motion, Ms. Gladysevsky.
Yes. Can we restate that? Because as written, it's 90 days. And so it's really changing it from 90 to 60.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry, my apologies. So changing from 90 days to 60 days.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Ms. Gladysevsky? You said yes?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Hale?
No.
Mr. Smith?
No.
Ms. Wall?
No.
Mr. Bryson?
No.
Ms. Hughes Candies?
Yes.
Ms. Treem?
Yes.
Wahalgaduck?
Yes.
And Mayor Weldon?
No.
Amendment fails 4 to 5. 4 yea, 5 nay.
All right. Anything further, Ms. Hale?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If I may make one comment for our public, people have talked in testimony concerned that this is a slippery slope and that further regulation might be coming. And I just wanted to let people know, because a lot of the people that we are hearing from have not followed those many, many hours that this assembly has spent talking about short-term rentals. There is the possibility that regulation might be coming, as has happened in Hawaii, and I think actually up in the Matsu and in various parts of the country. And this is a first step. We can't regulate if we don't know what our universe is. So that might be happening, and I don't want to pretend that that might not be happening. I would also say that this assembly has spent an enormous amount of time working on housing. There's a housing project on the agenda that we heard testimony about accidentally earlier. And we've been addressing many concerns about housing, and we know that short-term rentals are not the only problem. Zoning is a problem. There's all cost of construction is a problem. There's all kinds of things. And so we need to take a multi-pronged approach. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hale. All right, so we have a motion with amendments. Any objection? Okay, I'll object quickly for a purpose of a statement also, since everybody else has. I don't like to refer to the short-term rentals as a problem. I'm sorry, I just have a problem. I have a problem with that. We have some concerns that the short-term rental may be affecting housing, but we don't know that for sure. That's why we have this ordinance and this registration program to see how much it can. But I would urge my assembly members, triple urge my assembly members to talk to some of these people in the room like I have and see the true value of short-term rentals, and that they may or may not have anything to do with long-term rentals. So with that, the motion has passed. You are. Go ahead, madam. Go ahead.
Just wanted to say that this is for me about getting data. We have some pressure from our community to do something about short-term rentals. I don't know if how many we have, and I don't know how much housing we have. So it's just, for me, it's a collection of data, and I'm not in favor of, quote, doing something about short-term rentals when we don't know, we don't have data. So for me, it's about collecting data. How many do we have? And that's all. That's all.
All right. Ms. Hughes Candies.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I will be very brief. I just want to say, and it's been alluded to from people up here, and I think you can get that people want to tread cautiously and recognize the value of having that extra. But I also want to remind our fellow assembly members that we did ask staff to go away and bring us back a slate of regulation options. So we will be, doesn't mean we'll be going forward with something, but just to be clear, like, not that's a road we may go down. It's a road we already started going down, but we won't be doing things without data and without industry participation. But just to be clear, because I wouldn't want to pretend that's not something we've said in public, because we have.
Thank you, Ms. Hughes Candies. All right, motion has passed. Let's take 10 minutes. Will bring us back into session. Next item, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We are now on ordinance 2023-28. An ordinance authorizing the manager to convey approximately 11.5 acres of property located at Peterson Hill to Tlingit Haida Regional Housing Authority for less than fair market value.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Manager.
Last fall, the Assembly authorized the city manager to enter into negotiations with the Tlingit Haida Regional Housing Authority for the disposal of property at Peterson Hill for less than fair market value. THRHA plans to build homes on these lots and sell 50% of them to low-income tribal citizens, and the other 50% will be available to moderate-income Juneau residents for purchase. Lands Housing Economic Development Committee reviewed this proposed CBJ land disposal at the meeting on August 29, 2022. Passed a motion of support to the Assembly to direct the manager to negotiate the sale of CBJ property for less than fair market value. Assembly reviewed this application at the September 12, 2022 meeting, passed a motion authorizing the manager to enter into negotiations with THRHA towards disposal of city property for less than fair market value. Fair market value has been determined to be $700,000. This ordinance will authorize $600,000 to be forgiven as conditions in the ordinance are met. I recommend you adopt this ordinance.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. We do have testimony on this. We've already heard from Ms. Lillian Petershore. Can you bring over Alicia Petershore, who might be under Lillian's?
Good evening. Can you hear me?
You're pretty faint.
Okay. Is this any better?
Yes, much better. Thank you. Please state your name and area of town you live in for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Hi, good evening. My name is Allie Petershore and I live on Fritz Cove. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you this evening regarding my concerns on our community's housing situation. I was born in Juneau and graduated from JDHS and left to complete my undergraduate and graduate degree. I have lived, worked, and bought homes in other communities. In 2016, I moved back to Juneau to be closer to family. And upon returning to Juneau, it seems like Juneau has become a depressed community with a tremendous lack of middle and upper income class homes. Over the past 4 years, my fiance and I have been looking for a home, and we've become increasingly frustrated with the lack of housing options. My fiance is a software programmer, and I'm a director with the state of Alaska, and we consider ourselves financially stable. Prior to moving back to Juneau, I worked for the City of Anchorage's Development and Planning Department, where I learned about city plans, and I would encourage the City Assembly to engage with the 2016 CBJ Housing Action Plan and develop an aggressive plan to address the housing situation. This 2016 plan identified a goal of constructing 66 homes each year for 30 years. And I'd be curious on our city's progress towards this goal. I feel that the Assembly should support this Peterson Hill ordinance, but it's not enough, and we need a multifaceted approach, and the city needs to release additional land for middle and upper income families. If the housing situation is not immediately and substantially addressed, I'm afraid that my fiance and I will be leaving Juneau, along with many of our friends and acquaintances who are established professionals who have already left Juneau due to the challenging housing situation, which saddens my heart. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Petershore? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony tonight. Next, we have David Ignell. Please state your name and area of town you live in the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. David Ignell, West Juneau. I have a lot of problems with this resolution, but to start off with, I want to express my support for more low-income housing. We definitely need it in this community. I also want to state my support for Ms. Jackie Pata. However, one of my concerns is the valuation of this property. $700,000 for 11 acres of rare flat buildable land for a ranch house just doesn't seem right. 69 houses, that's $10,000 a lot. And I think, I mean, is the real value $150,000? So I have real problems with the valuation. It says it comes from the city assessor, and I think many people in the room know that there's problems with that. Next, it ties up, we have a need for immediate housing, but if you look at the fine print of the resolution, the tribe is only obligated to build 30 houses in the next 10 years. We have immediate need. They can, they can hold on this land indefinitely. So that's got to be tightened up. Another thing, Ms. Pata's letters say that the cost of a unit is estimated at $450,000. That doesn't sound like low-income housing to me. Next issue, only half of these units are going to go to low income. If we're going to do something like this, maybe it should be all of them. Next issue, I'm concerned about the competitive edge that this gives Tlingit Haida over private businesses, home builders who want to build as well. If they're basically getting this land for free, that gives the tribe a huge advantage over private industry. And you heard my testimony earlier. I'm all for equal protection for tribes, but this seems like the wrong way to do that. There's certainly no rush to push this through. 30 houses in 10 years. I think I'd like to see more data. I'd like to see what this appraisal, this valuation of 700,000 is based on. I'd like to see this tightened up so that if there is going to be housing, the tribe has first of all, open it up to competition. And then also make sure that the tribe has to get some housing, or whoever's going to do this gets in place. And finally, I see from a legal standpoint, I see a constitutional issue because half of these homes are going to go to tribal members. So basically what you're doing is you're using public funds to prefer racially, and that's an issue. Anyway, any questions?
Any questions from Mr. Ignell? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Okay, looks like that's all the testimony I have for this one. Do we have Ms. Peta on the line? Jackie Peta? No, is she there if we had questions for her? I don't see her. No. Okay, so staff will have to do the best they can. Excuse me. All right, questions first before we do anything else. Anybody have questions on this one? Ms. Dream? Sorry.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Question for the manager. Can you just walk us through what the appraisal process was?
Mr. Manager.
Mayor, I think we could bring Mr. Blydorn up. You can talk about the appraisal process that we went through.
Mr. Blydorn.
Thank you. So the valuation of actually was just under $700,000, came from a third-party appraisal, and they considered the lot as it exists now. It's easy to look at the future when roads are built and utilities are built, but all that has value. And so, you know, if the city were to build this out with city funds, it would take probably north of $8 million before you could get to the property at the lot stage. So we reviewed that appraisal. We had some questions with it at the time, but I'm not an appraiser. The assessor's office doesn't assess city property in this manner. So we hired a third-party appraiser like we do for all city properties, and they came to the evaluation of just under $700,000. I think that was in March of this year, by the way.
Yeah, Ms. Gladysevsky.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. That's a question about speed of developing, and I see there's clauses in here, which is great. I think possibly you helped come up with those, which is so that the land doesn't sit. And talk about the decision about how this timeline came to be.
Mr. Blydorn.
Yes, thank you for that question. And so the timeline was negotiated between the city manager's office and the applicant. And so it was basically the first 3 years we'd have, well, let me pull it up here. The final plat needs to be finished, which takes time. There's going to be engineering that needs to get done before we could get to the point where we have a final plat and road construction can begin. So that's why the first step is after 3 years. And so in the second step, the $100,000 would be automatically forgiven with 15 housing units with certificates of occupancy after 5 years. And in some ways that might be optimistic if road construction takes longer or if permitting takes longer. And, you know, we've been negotiating this during the time when getting things here in town takes a lot of time. And so, and if you're at the point of building houses, it means you've also completed the permitting process as well. And so, and then to address the fact that the next phase would be when, you know, the next 15 units that would be due at 7 years is for phase 1C, which was part of the subdivision. And so by making it that 15 units from each phase would need to be done would also mean that all of the infrastructure for the entire subdivision would need to be complete. It's just a matter of getting to the point we'd have certificate of occupancy for structures and houses, if that makes sense.
Thank you. Ms. Hale.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Blydorn, and I talked to you a little bit about this earlier. There's a line in the manager's introduction that talks about 50% being available to moderate income Juneau residents. And I didn't see, but perhaps I didn't read it closely enough, anything in the purchase and sale agreement that would guarantee that it would go to moderate income Juneau residents. And I know that's not easy. I know those things are tricky. So perhaps I can just make a request to you and to Mr. Manager or Mr. Deputy Manager that somehow that be addressed, because what I would really hate to do is sell this property for a much lower price and then have somebody speculate and buy up all the houses or them be turned into short-term rentals. So we don't want that to happen. Thank you.
Who wants to answer that one? Mr. Watt.
Thank you, Mayor. It is indeed difficult to put future development requirements on a piece of property that we're selling now. But we would certainly work with the housing authority to make sure.
We need to have you speak up again.
We would certainly work with the housing authority to make sure that that goal is met.
Okay, any other questions? All right, we'll go to the assembly. Ms. Scream.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move ordinance 2023-28 and ask for unanimous consent.
Any objection? Seeing none, that ordinance passes. Item 18, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is ordinance 2023-29, an ordinance amending the sensitive areas requirements for the land use code related to marine mammal and anadromous water body habitat protections.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Manager.
This ordinance revises the land use code to address future development in stream setback and buffer areas. For years, maintaining a balance between development of the preservation of fish habitat in the land use code has presented difficulty to developers who struggled with limited work area during construction to ensure the buffer is not disturbed. This ordinance provides flexibility in code by maintaining practical protection of anadromous water bodies while allowing development to occur in a portion of the outer buffer during construction, by providing the work area necessary to construct outside the 50-foot buffer. Drafts of this ordinance have been worked on since 2017. Full path through the Planning Commission, Title 49 Committee, Assembly, Staff, and Law Review was outlined in a memo to the May 22nd, 2023 Lands, Housing, and Economic Development Committee. Planning Commission recommended a relatively complex ordinance that would allow development within the full 50-foot setback. The manager had staff direct ordinance 2023-29, which simplifies the process and allows an incursion of up to 15 feet into the 50-foot setback, provided that the area is revegetated with native plants during the same growing season. This approach balances the need to relax development rules while still protecting fish stream habitat. Lands, Housing, Economic Development Committee motion to support adoption of this ordinance. I recommend you adopt this ordinance.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. And I don't have any members of the public that wish to speak to this ordinance. All right, Mr. Hannah, please step up. Please state your name and area of town you live in for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Dave Hanna, Back Loop Road. I live on Ock Lake. Little background on myself. I actually sat on the Wetland Review Board for over 10 years. I was one of the founding members of our local watershed partnership, sat on that board for I think 15 years. Been involved in numerous wetland and stream bank restoration and creation projects. So if anybody appreciates the need for an ordinance like this, it's me. But sometimes these things need a little bit of tweaking. One thing I see on this is you have a requirement for an engineer to give you a guarantee that there's no change in the groundwater recharge. I think you'll be hard pressed to find an engineer that'll be willing to make that statement. I would like to see you delete that. It could be turned into quite a sticky wicket there, trying to get that moved. And the other thing, if these 4 pages is all we're actually passing tonight, it's nice, it's clean, it's simple. But one thing I want to make sure we're addressing is pre-existing uses. I'm not sure how this really affects pre-existing uses. For example, I'm really fortunate that my property was all fully developed actually before the borough, before the Clean Water Act passed, and before the stream side setback ordinance. And I'm actually in process of revegetating some of my shoreline there. And making some buffers and what have you. But I do have yard area that encroaches into this, and I'd be hard pressed to give that up. But like I say, I believe I'm grandfathered in. But we have dozens, if not hundreds, of homes in this community that it might be a real gray area. All those homes along Mendenhall River, let alone Duck Creek, Jordan Creek, Vanderbilt Creek, you know, we have umpteen anadromous water bodies in Juneau. I think it could be really, really onerous if all of a sudden these folks that didn't necessarily do these improvements within that setback area, they're probably the third owner removed. And they buy these properties presuming that this is how the land is and this is what they can use and they can have that yard there. And then they find out, well, oh, you can't be disturbing anything there. So it'd be nice if we could make sure we're not going backwards here and that all those folks that are in that gray area aren't going to be adversely affected by this ordinance. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Hannah. Ms. Gladys.
So, Mr. Hannah, first of all, thank you for coming. And also, what part were you talking about that you would prefer didn't exist? Because I couldn't find the words and.
Page 2 of 4. 4970-320 watersheds. It says upon
request.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right there. That could be real difficult to get anybody to any professional engineer willing to stamp that. That's hard to identify at times.
Any other, Ms. Hale?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Hannah, thanks so much for being here. I know you know this stuff very well. Are you saying you were talking about people all over town with houses right on or next to anadromous streams? Are you concerned that if they were going to do something on their property and need a permit, that all of a sudden they'd have to comply? Or are you concerned that they're out of compliance now and they're going to have to comply because they're out of compliance now?
That's exactly right. At one of the numerous Title 49 meetings that I attended and gave input on while this ordinance has been evolving, I asked that question of the director and was informed, yes, well, if we came across some development that occurred after the passage of the stream side setback ordinance, we would perhaps ask them to revegetate that and, you know, give up their yard or whatever it was. And so that's exactly what I'm afraid of, is that people would be, you know, like I say, these would be people that didn't necessarily do those improvements. They were probably done 20 years ago or whatever. And yet here they are, they bought this house, they bought this property thinking this is what they have. And then all of a sudden, at some point in time, somebody could come along and say, oh no, you better tear out your yard. You better plant some trees along here. You can't see the river anymore. I mean, it can get really ugly.
Follow up?
Follow up.
Thank you. But you're not trying to address people who the development occurred before there was the stream setback.
I don't think you
Regulations in
could
place.
legally. I mean, I think
Okay,
there's
good.
quite a few places around town. In fact, I've helped several people fix some of the things that actually they were grandfathered in, but the situation they had wasn't good for the stream, right? So
Yeah.
I said, well, hey, why don't we reroute the drainage? Let's vegetate a berm in here. Let's put some shade for the stream, and made some real viable improvements there, you know, that Fish and Game folks were really happy with. You know, sometimes we put in some overhanging stuff for the stream.
Great.
So I'm not concerned about stuff that happened before the ordinance, because I think legally that's grandfathered in, but there's a lot of gray properties out there.
Thank you.
Ms. Gladys.
Okay, so now I'm confused. We had something in existence before this, about 50 feet from the thing and no disturb or no build 25 feet, whatever the words is. So
That's still here.
it's crossed off.
Then
I mean,
you've
but
got
it's
another page.
redone in a different thing. Anyway, so now I don't understand what you're concerned about existing properties.
I just
Because we
want-
already had one and now it's different words, but it's doing a similar thing to the existing.
It is. It's just like I say, during that one conversation I had with a director, they were saying that if, for example, if somebody came in and wanted to put an addition on their house and it was determined that their driveway encroached in the setback or their yard encroached to the setback, they could be asked to remove that, even though three property owners prior to them had made all those improvements.
Sure. Can I ask Ms. Lanning a question?
Yeah.
So, sure, but again, we had an existing ordinance that did a very similar thing. The words were different, but 50 feet, no disturb, no build, whatever they was. So now there's just different words in a different place. Have we done anything different to those people that Mr. Hannah is talking about?
No, we have not.
So if they were in jeopardy before, they're in jeopardy still. This, by passing this, it doesn't do anything extra.
It doesn't increase their jeopardy. No.
Yeah. Any further questions for
Is
Mr.
that-
Hannah? Thank you for your testimony.
Thanks.
All right, and I didn't see any further testimony on that. So we'll bring it back to the assembly. Are there any questions before we start? Ms. Hale?
I wonder, I see Director McLean back there and I'm wondering if she could come up. I just have one question. Thank you.
Ms. McLean?
You're trying to hide. No, thanks for being here.
She was already standing up, ready to come.
She knew it was coming. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. McLean. Mr. Hannah's first comment was about, I think it'd be line 26, which doesn't have a number on page 70 of the packet. The developer shall provide evidence of compliance by certification of a professional engineer. I think that's it. But that looks to me like it was already existing. So that's not anything added. Is that correct?
Thank you through you, Madam Mayor. That is correct. And in fact, the Planning Commission in Title 40, or let me state that Planning Commission in Title 49, since I have been director, have not talked about the watersheds, and that was not our intent to make any changes to 4970, 320 watersheds with this ordinance. And so I'm not even versed to speak to it at all, other than we stayed out of it. Our focus was strictly the setback for the stream habitat.
Okay, thank you. Maybe something to do later. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Glaszewski?
Could you just explain the basic difference between what was existing in the 50 feet, 25 feet to what's new, just so people understand the
Yes.
30,000 foot thing?
Yep.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, it is actually, this ordinance is more flexible. It's allows, the difference now is that today, within the 50 foot, you basically cannot do anything. With this ordinance, during construction, the contractors would be able to would be allowed to work within the 35 to 50 feet to give them a little extra room to maneuver on the site, since they do tend to be a little tight when you're already losing that buffer space. So it was simply to accommodate more of the development. And if you like, I can touch on the non-conforming as well, briefly. Okay, so Ms. Glaszewski is absolutely correct. This ordinance has been on the books for quite some time, probably most of my lifetime, close to maybe a little less than that on this one. But, you know, these have been, it's pretty standard across the US. And I think Ms. Wool even spoke to that at the lands meeting as well. So if you have an existing property and you predate zoning completely, which happens quite a bit here in Alaska, I'll give you that. You are typically considered grandfathered in, or you're non-conforming, so you're allowed to keep what you have as long as you don't aggravate it, or in other words, change it or make it larger. If the zoning was on the books, this code existed, and you got your permits and we permitted it, or we even issued maybe a permit, something happened, we've run across them where you were at least issued a certificate of occupancy. Those would be respected. If, however, even if your 3 owners passed, if there are not permits, and we have now issued hundreds of non-conforming certificates at this point, it is the fewer and far between where we can't find any sort of documentation on something to help somebody prove that they participated somehow in the process. And I do my best to be quite flexible with that, understanding that if something was in the 60s, I probably don't have those documentations. You may not either, certainly not 3 times, you know, past the owner that originally started. So we do try to be flexible, but you are correct, Ms. Glaszewski. This has been on the books for a long time. If people are doing what they're supposed to be doing, then this shouldn't be a problem. And if they have a past owner that did something and maybe it's not them, we still try to work with them. One thing I do want to correct though too, that Mr. Hannah said is that if you came in for a, say you're of the habitat permit, something in the back, you have a creek in your backyard and you're going to put on a deck and you want the contractor to come in and be able to do that, you get your permit. If we notice that, for instance, you know, you have a shed or something or a staircase that looks like it may not be conforming, we wouldn't necessarily, we would probably flag it for you to say, hey, do you know you can go through this review for free, waive the fee and this and that, and we can let you know if you're non-conforming and if it's legal. And sometimes people say yes, sometimes they say no, and we move on, because if the permit that they're looking for isn't related to what may or may not be a violation, we're really not trying to get you. We're trying to make you comply. We're trying to make you go through the process. So we're really not trying to nitpick you. If though you're coming in for the habitat permit and now the structure or something you've built, it impacts that permit, well, then yes, now we're going to have to prove that you're non-conforming, that you were somehow grandfathered in, or that a permit wasn't required so that everything is legal. But that's what we do every single day. And I swear it is really like every single day on these non-conforming reviews, because the zoning just doesn't fit Juneau, as I know we keep talking about. So I'm very versed in them now. I think this code is much more flexible than it is today. I think it gives the contractors what they've been asking for 15 years or more at this point. So I'm hoping that you recommend approval and that we can check this one off and move on to some more important items, or equally important items, equally important.
Any follow-up, Ms. Gladys?
Nope, thank you.
Any other questions for Ms. McLean? Thank you. No further questions. Ms. Tree.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move ordinance 2023-29 and ask for unanimous consent.
Any objection? Seeing none, that motion passes. We're just going to keep trying to slug through. I know it's hotter than heck up here, but we'll go to item 19, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We are ordinance 2023-31, an ordinance authorizing the issuance of general obligation bonds in the principal amount of not to exceed 27 million to finance construction and equipping of a new city hall for the city and borough, and submitting a proposition to the voters at the election to be held therein on October 3rd, 2023.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Manager.
This ordinance would send a bond package to the voters to consider in the municipal election on October 3rd, 2023. This ordinance would send one general obligation bond proposition of up to 27 million for the construction and equipment of a new city hall. Total project cost with underground parking is currently estimated at 43.3 million, and the assembly has already appropriated 16.3 million of general funds. New City Hall would be built on Whittier Avenue across the street from the State Museum. The new facility would have a number of positive attributes for the city and our citizens, including the following: an end to office space rent payments in excess of 800,000 annually, the freeing up of historic apartment spaces, and the ability for customers and employees to do municipal business in a more efficient manner, as CBJ offices would be located in one place instead of 5 different locations. Additionally, a new structure would be more economical to maintain, as the existing city hall is one of our most expensive municipal buildings to maintain. Committee of the Whole selected 450 Whittier Street as a preferred site for a new city hall during the April 11, 2022 meeting. The Assembly requested staff introduce an ordinance to submit a proposition to the voters on the October 3, 2023 election ballot during the June 5, 2023 Committee of the Whole meeting. I recommend you adopt this ordinance.
Thank you, Mr. Manager, and we do have people testifying on this. Please bring over Greg Adler.
Good evening.
Please state your name and area of the town you live in for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Greg Adler, West Juneau. Rory Watt, the CBJ City Manager, is part of the executive branch of the CBJ and subject to the provisions of the HACT Act, arguably because the CBJ budget in part receives federal funding. And in his official position, he and the Assembly may not promote an initiative. The influence of Rory Watt and Assembly voting in favor of a $50,000 political donation to support a new city hall at best has the appearance of impropriety, is unethical, and at worst is unlawful and plain unlawful. It is the wrong time to put forward an initiative for a new city hall when political influence has corrupted the process and CBJ has not been candid about the rise in interest rates and escalating costs such as they use as the basis to raise individual property taxes. CBJ employees are free to express their opinion about the new city hall, but they may not engage in paid government political activities. They may engage in free speech, yet that right is coerced away by the pernicious activities of Rory Watt to select CBJ staffers who may be in favor of the new city hall or may just wish to be favored by Rory Watt or not get demoted or feel comfortable in the office at group lunches and parties and not deny promotion. It is bad enough that Rory Watt has politicized the new city hall in the face of voters turning it down. Who wouldn't want to be on the team Rory and receive extra pay? What if you think the new city hall is too grand for Juneau, or that with repairs, professional interior design, and workforce planning, the new city hall is not needed? CBJ employees are coerced into silence by not being part of the team. Nonpartisanship must prevail. $25,000 must be reallocated so both sides of this issue can be heard in a nonpartisan manner. CBJ employees better be on the Rory Watt team. If you're on the team, he favors you by doling out the $50,000 to you. Down at City Hall, it's a cabal. The Assembly must regulate what is happening in Juneau. The initiative to build a new City Hall will be backed by bonds issued against the value of Juneau property, which has been overassessed. The model the CBJ uses to support fair market values is inflated, not supported by MAI appraisals, and not supported by sales. Stop the madness that pushes forward unsustainable practices. Stop bullying property owners. Stop bullying the public by giving $50,000 to push your agenda. Standard & Poor's, Moody's, and Fitch will not be duped by the city manager, the finance director, or the assessor office. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Adler? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony tonight. Next, we have Sally Wilson, I think. Is that right? Please come up and state your name and area of town you live in for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
My name is Sally Wilson. Do I have to keep it pushed? Okay. Good evening. My name is Sally Wilson and I live downtown. And I'll start it off with something that may make you laugh and may not. I have never worked on a financial projection that was correct. They're always wrong. I have never reviewed a financial projection that was correct. They're always wrong. And that does not negate the importance of financial projections because they force the planners, the advocates, to think about what the possibilities are. And that's an excellent idea. One of the principles that's important in financial projections, as in most things, is full disclosure. And one of the concerns I have about the information that was presented in this very brief summary that Mr. Watt read was the fact that some information is not conveyed. So my suggestion today, as a citizen, as a non-assembly member, is that when we talk about the cost of this new city hall, let's include all of the initial costs. The costs such as canceling the rental agreements that exist in some of the buildings that we've been renting for at least 30 years. That's how long I've been in Juneau. What about the cost of disposing of City Hall? What are we going to do with it? How much will it cost to renovate it to get it into a saleable position? So basically with this first part, I'm advocating a clear presentation of the cost of the new building that's being proposed. The other suggestion I make is that when we're comparing the cost and the savings, well, yes, if we get rid of our rentals, we will save our rental cost. However, we will also have the debt service, not a cost, but the debt service cash flows at least. We also perhaps will have changes in maintenance cost, because as renters, are we responsible for maintenance in the rental property? We will be responsible for maintenance cost in the city hall if we own it. And the final point that I'd like to make is, I think in the interest of full disclosure, and with the fact that Juneau's population is growing fairly slowly, we need to inform the voters of the other capital projects that are kind of lurking in the background. The cost of the gondola up in Eagle Crest, and also the proposed second crossing to the bridge, second crossing to Douglas. I'm not advocating for any of the projects. I'm not advocating for a new city hall. I'm not advocating against a new city hall. And of course, I'm not talking about the quantitative factors in terms of having employees in closer proximity to each other. But I do want to stress the importance of trying to present all of the financial costs and benefits relating to this project. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Wilson? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony tonight. Next, we have Tom Williams. He's gone. Okay, next we have Nano Brooks. Please state your name and area of town you live in for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My name is Nano Brooks. I live in Ock Bay. I'm the owner of multiple businesses within the community, Hi-Fi Senpai, Wash Dasher Button Mash, Alaska Property Management, Alaska Hydropower, Alaska Mini Golf, and I am the Vice President and Treasurer for the nonprofit 49th Forward. I've been involved with a lot of, well, I should also say I have a day job of doing plumbing and HVAC, and I've been doing that for the last 8 years. So I have a lot of involvement with buildings and the construction process, especially from foundation to finish. And a lot of those projects have been like the State Library Archives Museum, the Centennial Building in Sitka, the Ketchikan Health, Peace and Health Center addition, and the Hoonah Tribal House out in Glacier Bay. I see these numbers and I just think that there are a lot more affordable options as far as proposed areas for the city hall that could be considered. I had called the owners of the land of the 2 acres over by Home Depot, and it's my understanding that that's owned by the brewery. And that's a 2-acre lot, and they're asking for $16 a square foot, and comes out to just a little over $1.4 million. It's been for sale for a substantial amount of time, so I think that there is some room for negotiation to happen there. And it also, if my understanding is correct, that businesses that operate with export, either the properties that those businesses own don't have to pay property tax or have a substantially less property tax. So by going and trying to go for that specific location, you're not taking away any revenue stream that the city already has established. Another benefit to choosing that location is that it is near a lot of the facilities that are construction related as far as Ag Pro and other developers. So just the logistics of building are a lot more centralized to where those services actually come from. And then also it would be more centralized to the community and equidistance from the valley and further Ock Bay and past to Douglas and downtown, and be a lot more centralized where everyone traveling to use the services of City Hall would have a more equal travel. I know that I've needed to come to City Hall multiple times for doing paperwork for my businesses and other things. And, you know, I understand that the parking is an issue, but with that location. You wouldn't need underground parking, which would drop a large majority of the cost of what's been proposed here. And oh, well, and also, saving that kind of money, could maybe be allocated into looking at the issues that brought us to the $15 million in deferred maintenance for this current building, and maybe trying to address some of the issues that got us there.
All right, thank you, Mr. Brooks. You're out of time. Any questions from Mr. Brooks? Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you very much, guys.
Next, we have Frank Bergstrom. Please state your name and area of town you live in for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Frank Bergstrom, Lemon Creek. On this issue, there was a ordinance passed a couple months or weeks back about $50,000 for public campaign on information. And I attempted to get to the existing information from the city engineering department. I'm just talking existing information here on their cost analyses. And I was told that that information was not available. It was under compilation, and that if I really wanted to see it, I could file a Freedom of Information Act or the local equivalent thereof in order to obtain that information. So I would have to say that this $50,000 program so far is less than optimal. It is difficult to provide meaningful information or comments on those analyses if I cannot see them. Then I went to what I can see, which is the CIP. And you, of course, have all been intimately involved in looking at the CIP. And just this year, if I tally up what appears to me to be deferred maintenance or those things that are just simply maintenance oriented, I've got $101 million here of maintenance that needs to be done to our facilities here in Juneau. That would appear to me be a very high priority. It's difficult to correlate those priority-wise with a new office building for the city because we don't have those information to do an adequate analysis. But if we look at the CIP over the next 5 years here up through 2029, there is a total for the CIP, which I'm sure you're very well aware of, $1.142 billion. Nowhere on that list do I see anything about a new office building for the city. So it would appear this ordinance is attempting to say, and this is me talking, that this new city office building has a greater priority than $1.142 billion of repair work, replacement, capital improvements. And without a more detailed analysis of why that is and why it should be the highest priority of the city, I question the propriety of this ordinance and this concept. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Bergstrom? Thank you for your testimony tonight. Next, we have Mr. Ignell. Excuse me. Please state your name and area of town you live in for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. My name is David Ignell, West Juneau. I guess what really bothers me is all of you are going to vote here shortly on this thing, and I don't think you guys know what the cost of this thing is and what the savings are. And I want to echo something that Ms. Wilson said earlier. So I heard Mr. Bryson and some of you last year talk about when, going out and pitching this deal last year, we're paying $820,000 in rent and we're going to save that. So my question has been, how much of that rent is what we call in the industry? And by the way, I spent most of my career in commercial real estate finance. We call triple net expenses, stuff like taxes, insurance, maintenance, janitor, utilities, whatever. I wrote an email to Mr. Watt a little over a month ago, and I asked him for that specific information, and I didn't get it. I think all of you need to have that information. Now, based on the information that was publicly available, what I figured out is that the actual savings is not $820,000 a year. It's actually about $270,000. So does it make sense to build a, they're saying this thing, and again, I think it was Ms. Wilson who talked about, we need to know all the costs. So it's not 25 million, it's not 37 million, it's probably 40 or 50 million. And then you add in this multiplier that there's evidence of in recent hearings about how all bids are 1.5 to 2 times. We're looking at a $60 to $80 million project, and we're saving $270,000 a year. That does not justify it. So I only got 3 minutes. I could go on all day about this. The other thing is the lack of our population is declining. 20 years ago, we had 5,700 kids in our schools. Now we have 4,200, and it's going to be down to 3,000. That's a 47% drop. We have probably too many school buildings in this community. And why can't those be used for City Hall? Something to think about. The voters already said no, but here we are. And like people have said, $50,000 to, I think Mr. Adler's right. I sat over there a year ago and I brought this issue up, and you guys all took a vote about spending money. And you agreed with me that it's unethical to do that. So what's happened? Have your morals changed in a year? I mean, that's all I'll have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions, Mr. Smith?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Ignell, where did you come up with the 230,000? How did, just briefly, how did you get there?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Smith. So what I did is I looked at the expenses for what you all are paying here for this building. You are renting, comes out to, I think you got 33,000 square feet. Yeah, 33,600 square. Strike that. You're paying, I guess this is on your, oh man. What I had figured out is that you're paying $24 a square foot for rent. $16 a foot is what you're paying for this building, for janitorial, for maintenance, for utilities, all these things, all these triple net expenses. So when you take that $16 a foot and you extrapolate it to the new City Hall, that's where you end up with only $270,000. I mean, I'd be happy to share the math with you in an email or something like that. And again, these are not, I asked Mr. Watt, I said, look, I want the copies of the leases. I want the copies of the payments. I want, I have the expertise to put all this on a spreadsheet and make it very simple, but I need the data, and I haven't gotten the data. So this has put me in this position of trying to kind of guess what it is by looking at the expenses here, which we know what they are, and then taking that per square foot number, which is $16 a foot, and applying it to a new City Hall. So, basically, and then by subtraction, that 33,000 square feet that you're renting currently, I think in 4 different properties, right? That's 820,000. That works out to $24 a foot. So, you're going to have to, and other people have testified to this, you're going to have to pay a boatload of money to maintain that place. And that raises another issue because you haven't maintained this place properly. So are you going to make the numbers look better by cutting back on maintenance costs over there? I mean, that's a concern of mine. So thank you, Mr. Smith.
If you would share that math when you have a chance, that'd be great. Thank you.
I will. I'll send you an email.
Thank you.
Anything further? Thank you, Mr. Ignell.
Thank you.
I don't have anybody else signed up. Does anybody else want to testify? Mr. Hannah.
Thank you, Madam
Please
Mayor.
state your name and area, town you live in for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
You bet. I'll be brief. Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the Assembly. Dave Hanna, Back Loop Road. I didn't intend to testify on this subject tonight, but after listening to everybody that's come up here before me, I have to say that I believe those folks all make a lot of really valid points. And full disclosure is a pretty important thing. I mean, everybody should have access to all the data that's possibly available. So that would only be fair. And I'd actually had it in the back of my mind when this first came up about equal time. And when Mr. Adler said something about that, it really struck a chord with me. And if there's going to be an information booklet or something put out there for this, it would only be fair to give anybody that has what they feel is conflicting information, if it can be verified, if they have a different point of view, it would only be fair to give those folks an equal opportunity to present that. So if you could somehow rearrange the way this pamphlet is going to go out there and make it equal, that would be great. Thanks.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Hannah? Thank you for your testimony. I don't see anybody else, so we will bring it back to the assembly. Any questions before we vote? Seeing none, Ms. Dream.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move ordinance 2023-31 and ask for unanimous consent.
Mr. Smith.
Thank you. I actually did have a question. I was still on the drop. Mr. Watt, would you let us know, I mean, you are going to be presenting the financial information and releasing, I mean, can you give us a glimpse or whatever that's going to look like to address maybe some of the public testimony we've heard?
Mr. Watt.
Thank you, Mayor. Absolutely. We intend to compile all the information that we have from last year, make it accessible to everyone in the public, update those numbers for where we are this year for changes, for example, the additional general fund that the Assembly has contributed to the project. Some of the testifiers are just ahead of our process simply. We absolutely intend to compile a complete packet of all that factual information and make it accessible to the public in timely manner for the election.
Follow up, Mr. Smith, you're good. Ms.
Nope, that was good. It just that important for everyone to have that information before they do make their personal vote at the ballot. So thank you.
Ms. Glassewski.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I know you intend to put out everything you have. I mean, and some of the testifiers requested that, and I'm sure you will. You and I talked earlier about the voter pamphlet and when the city allows pro and con statements. And I know there have been issues where we have gotten in the past a pro and a con statement. We can't have 10. We can't ask anybody who wants to write something, but because we're not going to put out a pamphlet that's 80 pages. So what thoughts do you have about getting some group to write a con statement in the thing?
Mr. Manager.
Mayor, in the past, indeed, we have had pro-con positions in voter information guide, and those issues have largely been policy issues. Things like should we or should we not add fluoride to the drinking water? Should we regulate the use of single-use plastics? A number one that I recall to mind. I do not believe in my memory that we've done that for a capital project. In this case, the capital project has a list of attributes that we found persuasive to recommend to the Assembly. And I think the public is welcome to debate and vote on the issue, but I think it's fundamentally a different question than the policy issues in which we've had pro and con statements. And some of those pro and con statements were brought to the Assembly absent there being a municipal position as well.
Yeah, I would just, the only one I can recall right off my head is the fluoride one, that it was the city didn't have a position. We had two different positions in the community and they were represented by two different statements.
Anything further? All right, we have a motion on the floor. Any objection? Seeing none, that motion passes. Do we need a break or continue on? 5 minutes? 5 minutes. All right, item 20, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is ordinance 2022 6BAX, an ordinance appropriating $8,100,000 to the manager for the purchase of the Juno Bone and Joint Center property at 3220 Hospital Drive, funding provided by hospital funds.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Watt.
This ordinance would appropriate $8,100,000 of hospital funds for the purchase of the BBGH Development LLC property at 3220 and 3230 Hospital Drive, Juneau, Alaska. Property includes over 21,000 square feet of medical and commercial space in two buildings on a 53,000 square foot parcel with clinical and healthcare administration space challenging to come by in the current real estate market. This acquisition would represent one of the few opportunities to increase Bartlett's space for growth near our existing campus. Additionally, the existing property offers steady commercial rental income, providing immediate access to positive cash flow. This ordinance will appropriate authority to a capital improvement project for the purchase of this building to offer Bartlett maximum flexibility in transaction closing. Request was reviewed by the hospital board at the April 25th, 2023 meeting. Committee of the Whole reviewed this request at the June 26th, 2023 meeting. I recommend you adopt this ordinance.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. And we have one member of the public wishing to speak to this item, Mr. Ignell. Please state your name and area of town you live in for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
David Ignell, West Juneau. I think it was Einstein who said the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. That's pretty much how I feel right now. I've been coming to a lot of meetings here and testifying and hearing other people testifying. It doesn't matter what we say here. There's been multiple issues where it's been unanimous public testimony urging you not to do something, but unanimously you rule against us. So the question in my mind the last month or so has been, who really runs this town? You guys are supposed to run the city manager, but what I see happening is the city manager is running you. And this brings up some very deep concerns about mine about the hiring process for the next city manager. Because
Mr. Ignell, you're supposed to be speaking to.
well, and I'm getting to this because, okay, so let me go to this. So now city manager wants to spend $8.1 million to buy 20,000 square foot office building, $400 a square foot for a commercial property class, which is in decline. Office space vacancies are increasing all over the country and here. But yet we're just told, hey, this thing is worth $8 million. Let's go ahead and pass this. So I have a lot of questions on the valuation of this property. I also want to know, why is the city getting into the real estate business? You guys, first of all, you don't take care of your buildings. So we're going to spend $8 million on this and you're probably not going to take care of it. But then now you're in competition with every person in town who owns commercial office space. Why are you competing against private business? You're going to be able to offer tenants sweetheart deals that private industry just can't compete with. I have a problem with that. That's basically all I have to say.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Ignell? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Before we go on, are there any questions? We obviously have Mr. Keith here and several members of the hospital board. All right, seeing none, Ms. Treen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move ordinance 2022-06BAX and ask for unanimous consent.
Any objection? Seeing none, that motion passes. Thank you for the hospital board and hospital staff for being here tonight. Item 21, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Ordinance 2022-06BAY, an ordinance appropriating up to $500,000 to the manager for the Information Technology Infrastructure Capital Improvement Project for the purchase of permitting, land management, and property valuation software, funding provided by general funds.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Manager.
This ordinance would appropriate up to $500,000 for permitting, land management, and property valuation software for the community development and finance departments. Software will provide an online public portal for permit and land use applications, inspection requests, status updates, and payments. Software would maintain property data, property valuation, and ensure tax equity through uniform valuations for the assessor's office. Additionally, the assessor's office would use the software for the administration of exemptions, assessment notifications, appeals processing, and reporting. Software would increase staff productivity while offering faster, more accurate, and user-friendly systems for permit and land use applicants and property owners in the CBJ. Software costs will exceed the requested $500,000 by an estimated $300,000. The excess funds would be provided by previously appropriated funds in the Information Technology Infrastructure CIP. Mayor's Housing and Development Task Force recommended the CBJ acquire permitting software as a major outtake of its work. I recommend you adopt this ordinance.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. We don't have any members of the public signed up to testify at this time. So we will bring it to the Assembly. Ms. Stream.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move ordinance 2022-06 BAY and ask for unanimous consent.
Any objection? Seeing none, that motion passes. So we will move on to new business. Ms. Glaszewski.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would. Yeah, the Assembly has reviewed. Oh, I have to turn on my microphone. Assembly has reviewed applications submitted to the assessor regarding property tax assessment and looked at each one, and I move that the Assembly direct the assessor to accept these applications and review them. The hardship list for Gerald Harvey, Patricia Adkisson, Richard Steele, Glenn Six, Larry Snyder, Deborah Cantrell, Walter Bennett, and also the late filed senior and disabled veteran exemption list, the application of Rachel Beck. And I ask for unanimous consent.
Any objection? Seeing none, that passes. Next, we go to staff reports. Who's doing the Assembly calendar? Mr. Watt.
Mayor, so this is just a verbal report. So we have a regularly scheduled Assembly meeting on July 31st, but it's anticipated that that week could be intensive week for the Assembly in the selection of the new manager. So the tentative plan is to cancel the regularly scheduled meeting on July 31st and replace it with a special meeting that would be a consent agenda only meeting with maybe a few other small items, so we can keep legislation moving forward. On tonight's agenda, the items that we had for introduction on the consent agenda are not timely and can go for action in August. So it's just a verbal update on how we would intend to respond if the scheduling makes that week a busy week for the Assembly. And that concludes that topic.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Any questions on that? Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. When would the potential replacement meeting be?
Mayor, it would be the evening of the 31st. So same evening, but rather than having a full Assembly meeting, we would just have a special meeting that would be consent agenda only.
Yeah, there's some ordinances that need to be introduced. All right, moving on, tourism report. Ms. Pierce promises to be short, she said. So if you have a ton of questions, you might have to take her for coffee because we still have things to do tonight. Ms. Pierce.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I will heed those words and state that the Assembly has read my memo and I am happy to take any questions.
All right, Ms. Hale.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Ms. Pierce. I've been in contact with you and several people on staff about the issue with the bus system and people actually getting to the glacier and the Forest Service not issuing permits for people to take them to the glacier. Thank you, which is filling up the buses. And actual Juneau residents are being turned away. And this is true. And I think that having ridden the bus for more than a year, I have a good sense of what that population is like that rides the bus. And often the people that ride the bus are some of our most poor citizens, not always, of course, and might not have access to even figure out who to make that complaint to. And I know that we've talked about it. I just want to urge the assembly to become familiar with this issue and for us to really explore every option, school buses, churches, because people in Juneau, our residents, are being turned away from our own bus. So that's way more a statement than a question, but I really want to make sure this is a issue that people are aware of. Locals can't ride the bus.
So the question she wanted to ask is, how are we addressing this?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So we actually have the consulting team that we hired for the circulator project in town, and I've tasked them with looking into this among a number of other things. We're working with Capital Transit. As you know, there's a driver shortage at Capital Transit, and they're having a hard time filling routes. When there are drivers available, they're putting additional buses and drivers on the glacier or on the valley service in order to help fill those needs. We're also tracking, have drivers tracking the number of people that they're passing up at stops so we can measure the severity of the problem. We have a meeting with the Forest Service tomorrow to understand their side of this. What I understand right now is that the Forest Service is bound by their environmental permit with the number of glacier permits that they can issue per season. The bus companies know at the beginning of the season how many permits they have in a year. The bus companies that sell privately and sell on the dock they still have enough permits to finish the season with existing bookings. So if somebody booked online in April for a glacier trip in September, that trip will still happen. It's the sales off the dock to people getting off the ships on a day-to-day basis that are not happening. They also have a limited number of city and glacier tours still available. So they're keeping me updated on when those might run out. And there is a limited number of additional permits available from the Forest Service. Usually they've said that verbally to some of the operators. Again, I'm talking with them tomorrow, so I'll know more then, but it's nowhere near enough to fill the demand. So we're also working on messaging at our visitor centers and trying to make sure that we do everything we can to, well, we can't say you can't ride public transit. We can offer people a list of other options such as taxis or other attractions. So we're trying to do everything we can through the information channels we have available.
Follow up, Ms. Hill.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I think we have a committee of the whole meeting in a week. Can you get us those Capital Transit numbers for that meeting so that we can actually find out how many people are being turned away at that time?
I can ask Capital Transit for those numbers.
Thank you. And the second part of that question, or the second question is there any way that agencies like CLIA or the cruise ship companies, they're bringing these tourists to town, and it's not like it's their fault, except that our people that live here can't ride the bus. So do they have buses? Is there some way that they could follow the city bus and pick up people at the bus stop? I really hope we explore all options.
Thank you through the mayor. One thing that I've broached with a few of the bus companies is perhaps there's a private company to private company solution for a space to drop off passengers. I don't know what that would look like, but I know that the tour bus companies are currently kind of tapped out with meeting this demand. But I don't. We can certainly continue to evaluate and explore options.
Ms. Huskadis.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I think, Ms. Pierce, I will have to take you out for coffee because I'll just say two things and then you can answer both of them. And then we can have a longer conversation about the memo later. But my one question is related to whale watching. I'd like to hear more about that meeting because it sounds like the takeaway was public outreach and developing more stringent management practices. I did go to the TBMP, or not TBMP. I went to the VIDIF meeting when we talked about whale watching, but I would love if that could come to a cow in the future because I'm curious and would love an update on what staff thinks. Wouldn't that management come from us in part? And it's one of the tourism issues that I've been getting a lot of citizen outreach on this summer, a lot of concerns about whale watching. So I'll say that. And then the other was the commercial recreational use. There's a little bit in there that is not exactly how I would understood us to be phrasing it. Definitely how we manage things, whether that's, keeping it spread out or all locked in. But if you could talk a little bit about that, or just reassure me that when it gets closer to doing the RFP in the fall, you'll update us on that again. So we're good on the scope of what it is we're spending that money on. Thanks.
Ms. Pierce.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So on whale watching, we did hold a meeting with the operators and we had Kirby Day give a briefing or a reminder for some of the operators that have been in the business for a long time about what happened with flight seeing tours in the early 2000s, which is kind of a similar situation to where we're at with whale watching now, where the city doesn't have a lot of jurisdictional authority over whale watching. It happens out on the water on Coast Guard, federal jurisdiction, and we don't have a lot of control. What came out of a lot of committees and plans and studies and energy and effort in the early 2000s with flight seeing was some more stringent guidelines and regulations. And Ms. Gladaszewski was there, had I might be bringing up some painful suppressed memories for her, but she was there and lived through all of that. And so what we tried to impress upon the whale watch operators was you could skip all that and we could come up with some more stringent guidelines. So they have agreed to form a committee that Bob Janes is leading to look into what that might look like, and then also to look at what a public outreach strategy from the whale watch community might look like. So their first meeting is on Thursday night. So I can also, when I come back and give an update on Capital Transit, I can talk about how that meeting went and where that's headed. But, in the spirit of TBMP, I think it's really important that the operators take this on themselves and make the effort. And I'm kind of heartened to see them want to make the effort. So I will give an update on what that looks like and what some of the potential solutions might be. And then as we move forward, we can evaluate what city what opportunities we have for regulation. They're very limited. As I've said before, with other tourism related things, the city only has blunt tools to use. But we can look into those tools and how we might use them in concert with what the industry comes up with for itself. And then shifting to the commercial recreation study, recognizing that it's late in the evening and you have other work to do, I will commit to coming back and discussing the scope of work with this body at a future date.
Ms. Glaszewski.
Thanks. We could have you committee of the whole. I just wanted to give people a chance to ask questions that you could come back. And bless Bob James if he wants to do that again, because he was there for the fights and seeing thing as well. So he deserves a hot dog or something. Two things. Whale watching is certainly one of them that people complain still about. So I'm super glad to see they're getting together and hopefully they'll come up with the solution, and that will be excellent for everybody. Another thing I'm getting complaints about is cell service bandwidth. When cruise ships are in town, is it true? Well, it is true. But anyway, what do you know? What can we do? Blah, blah, blah. What's happening with that? That's one question. I have one more.
Go ahead, Ms. Pierce.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Ms. Glaszewski, it is true. Last year, I had made some progress with GCI, and then the staffer at GCI that I had been working with is no longer there. We've had some outreach through our MIS department. There are some employees there who know relevant people at the cell phone companies. I have not had a lot of success in having a conversation with them, but we're trying.
And I always thought it was just people downtown, but people all throughout the borough have said that it it's not just people downtown. So anyway, you know that. Okay. And then the Hoot and Totem doc just mentioned that there's a meeting tomorrow and whatever you know about all that.
Ms. Pierce.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Hoot Totem is before the Planning Commission for their conditional use permit tomorrow night. And those application materials and recommendations from CDD are available online. And I would encourage the Assembly to watch the outcome of that closely, because the conditions that the Planning Commission makes, or if they approve the conditional use permit, some of the conditions therein may be a foundation for some of the things that the Assembly wants to include in the lease discussions.
Any further questions for Ms. Pierce? You're off the hook till Monday, next Monday. Thank you. And I believe, congratulations, since the last time we saw you. I don't think you were married. All right, this is going to be a very different Assembly reports because we have half an hour and we want to leave some time for our executive session. So unfortunately, regrettably, I had to accept a letter of resignation from Ms. Treem. So we have some things for you. Staff, would you like to do your stuff first?
All right, I'll start, and Rory will undoubtedly add to this. I think I can speak for all of us, Carol, when I say that we are going to miss you deeply. We are super sad to see you leaving, and I think it was Rory's. I think it was Rory's idea. This particular maybe gag gift, but it's not entirely a gag gift, because we know that one of your many passions in municipal service has to do with the four-legged animals that some of us love and some of us hate. And I remember having a conversation with you. Oh gosh, was it last winter, about cat licensing and like when we might start talking about that, because our contractor that cares for animal control and sheltering services was struggling with revenues, and we were working on negotiations, all that stuff. And I think that conversation went, Carol, I'm thinking about talking about this. Maybe it might be at a finance meeting or something. And I think you were like, oh God, Robert, please no, or something like that, right? So I'm sad to see you leave before we get to have that really fun conversation. But to remind you of that, we have you this beautiful spiked collar with the first CBJ cat license hanging from it. So, yeah.
Madam Clerk, do you want to do the box? Do you want to give her the box? That's her best, so everything that. All right, next, the clerk's got you a whole bunch of stuff.
I think it's kind of a group effort. There are several things that were thrown in here. The thing I realized is we forgot. Oh, yeah. But this is, so you never forget.
All right, and I apologize, the main gift didn't quite make it, but this is the flag that flew over the Capitol today. Thank you, Senator Keel, for making that happen. Unfortunately, the box that it's supposed to go into isn't here yet, so you can't have this yet, but it even has a certificate that it flew over the Capitol. So eventually you'll get that with Carol Treem, October 2nd, 2018 to July 10th, 2023, City and Borough Assembly on it. So I'm sure everybody wants to say a few words, but I get to start. So I wrote a poem. I have many talents. There once was a girl named Carol Treem who could swim like a fish in a stream. Smart and sassy with glasses of red she wore. In Petersburg, she set swim records galore. She knew she had to think big and spread her wings, so moved to Juneau for a job of all things. For a seat on the assembly I'll run, but didn't campaign when everything was said and done. She was patient and waited for another seat, and in 2018, her team was impossible to beat. She voted yay and nay on all things that came her way. On many community topics, she had her say. A strong advocate, she saved the pool, but to the gondola, she was a bit cool. Beers at the Triangle helped her decompress. The mayor joined a few times, I must confess. On the VITF, she served as chair. Many didn't think she had a prayer. Through many tourist topics, she helped them sift and came out with recommendations they could live with. Behold, a pandemic to ruin the day. Carol served well during that time in her usual calm way. With her cute grin and hair of yellow, she met Sean, a nice Australian fellow. Who, unlike Rory, put up with her cat in his life. Taking beautiful pictures, they became husband and wife. Land's chair was next on her assembly roam, but finance was where she found her true home. Budget spreadsheets and projections made her smile. The numbers nerd drug us all through the process with style. 5 years with Carol is too short of time. We'll miss the bright pink tops and pants of lime. She will work from afar to write grants for AML. Other elected positions she will hold, we can tell. Working with Carol with an E has been a dream, and I'm truly glad and honored to say I am part of the dream team. Okay, we will start with staff. Does anybody want to talk from staff?
Carol, we're gonna clearly miss you. We're gonna miss your math and your focus on numbers and statistics and your analytical abilities. It's been my pleasure to serve you and the assembly, and we wish you all the best and hope to see you back in Southeast someday.
Anybody else? People have signed cards, so if they're too shy, they can. Ms. Cathcart.
On behalf of the clerk's office, that when you're back in town next year, the candidate filing period will be in mid-July. So we'll be happy to see you there once again.
All right, anybody else? All right, on the assembly, anybody want to say anything or save it for later?
It's hard to top your poem.
Okay, Ms. Deputy Mayor.
It's no poem, but really appreciate serving with you. And you did a great job as finance chair. It's a really hard job. Everybody has some idea and you sort of help us make through the meeting, not be 17 hours. So really appreciate that. I hope you do well in Australia and come back soon.
Ms. Hale, we'll just go down the line.
Just,
Choose not.
just thanks so much for everything. Everything. Thank you.
Mr. Smith.
I hope we see you again soon. I hope your stay is just short and things work out and you're able to come back soon. But it's always been impressive and inspiring to see you're like rooted in your values and your beliefs, and you fight for those things, and you're thinking big and you're thinking long into the future, and you do those things every time and on every vote to get towards there. So thank you for serving with us.
Ms. Wall.
Thanks. People have said so many of the things that I want to say about you, Carol, but there's a thing that I feel like we don't often talk about because we don't like going back there. But before I was on the assembly, there was this horrible month called March 2020. And many of you, I remember going for a cross-country ski on a Sunday afternoon with my headphones in, listening to an assembly meeting, not something that I normally do, because you all had to make some amazingly complex and challenging decisions for our community that you didn't have information to make those decisions on, and you all did such a wonderful job. And I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for helping our community get through that time.
Well, Gadot.
I'll just say, I only got to sit by you for a year. The year before we weren't by each other, but I'm going to miss your side comments when you're like, I told you so moments. But in all seriousness, keeping the grace, keeping things light when they get heavy in this space. The way that you present information and you keep us on track through all of the things. They're going to miss all of that. Going to miss your sideline conversations when we get the chance to debrief and when we get the chance to talk with each other afterwards. And it really has been awe-inspiring, and I've learned a lot just by watching you. And so I thank you for helping to be a good teacher and a good mentor as I'm growing my wings in this space. And gonna miss you, and just come back quick. Bring her back fast.
Ms. Hughes Sandy, do you want to say anything?
I told Carol I was afraid to say anything because I was afraid I would start crying. But we have laughed and we have cried and we have laughed, cried, which has made this whole experience and you've enriched my experience so much. And I feel very lucky to have you as somebody who is, for the bulk of my time, sitting next to me, so I could pass a note and we could lose a vote together, or we could vote on opposite sides of something. And I knew I would just still have you to inspire me, to make me laugh, and now to make me cry. But We will really miss you, but I'm grateful as somebody who lives here for the time you spent.
Mr. Bryson?
Oh, man, everybody said so many great things about Carol, which are rightly deserved. We cut our teeth together, got elected the same year, and we kind of drank from the fire hose at the same time was the expression that was used. And I could always like turn to Carol because we were both kind of in the same, like, are we sure we're doing what we're supposed to be doing right now? Is it question or answer time or question or statements? Man, as everybody said, we're going to really miss having you because not only were you there with us every moment from the pandemic, but we had so many financial decisions and we sorted through so much money. And the way that it was described as you herded us cats, because we would have been all over the board and we were talking about, millions and very heated conversations and a lot of emotion in the room. And I was just always so proud of how well Carol handled that substantial amount of money discussion. And, I'm gonna look up to Carol for a very long time, the whole time we know her. But the only thing that I will leave you with is the only bright side of you leaving the assembly is it was the only way that I was ever going to be able to outrank you on the assembly. So thank you for leaving. Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I love you, Carol Treem. You're the best.
Ms. Treem, do you want to say anything?
Yeah, I'll try. I just thank you guys for the last 5 years have been pretty incredible. And I really feel like everybody I've shared this dais with often disagree with each other, but I know that I've always felt that everybody is here for the same reason. And I think that it's just been really obvious with all 8 of you. So it's been an honor to work with you guys and I'm going to miss you a lot. And I just want to say that I think the city and borough of Juneau has the best staff in the entire world. And you guys make this job a lot better. And I appreciate the hard work of everybody who works for CBJ. And I appreciate really immensely the sense of humor that you guys have, because it's just, this job could be awful and it's not. It's mostly fun. And I'm going to miss that a lot. So I love all of you a lot and I'm going to miss you terribly. And I hope that I'll be back in Juneau before too long. So thank you, everybody.
We'll save the hugs for later. So Carol's resignation is effective tonight at midnight. There's some concern with people going on vacations and not being at the meetings that we are short in numbers. So I will pass my gavel to Deputy Mayor, because I think I probably have to because I'm doing a nomination. So I am going to nominate Lauren Jones to finish up Carol's Treem to the next regular assembly, which happens in October. And I ask for unanimous consent.
Any comments about the motion? Talk about the motion, objections to the motion? Hearing no objection. Just want to make for the record, Carol is not voting on this.
Right. Yes.
She's
Thank
not
you.
involved.
Carol couldn't vote on that.
This really, I mean, yeah, there's not a vacancy yet, so it's a little bit awkward.
Yes.
The attorney thinks we can do this, so anyway.
She knows we
It's
can not
passed.
just think. Thank you. And then Carol wanted to make the next nomination.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to nominate Ms. Wall to chair the Assembly Finance Committee from midnight tonight until the reorganization meeting in October.
Any objections? Seeing none, that is also passed. And then just one side thing. Ms. Treem is also the hospital liaison, and Ms. Hale has agreed to do that unless there's any objections, unless anybody else wants to do it. See none, that passes also. So with that, we have 10 minutes pretty much to do assembly report. So I'm just going to ask if there's any pressing piece of information that somebody has to get out there. Otherwise, we will just skip them all. And so I'm just going to go quickly down the line because it's probably more efficient that way. Ms. Gladys, do you have anything?
I have nothing other than I'm going to be out of town starting tomorrow and be back for the next assembly meeting on the 31st.
Hence the reasons why we need more bodies. Ms. Hale.
Nothing.
Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm going to do my HRC, my Human Resources Committee recommendations. At tonight's HRC meeting, the committee recommended, so I moved we made these recommendations, but I moved the appointment of Eric Moots to the Historic Resources Advisory Committee for a term beginning July 1, 2023 and ending June 30th, 2026. And I ask for unanimous consent.
Any objections? Seeing none, he is appointed.
Thank you. We also made unanimous recommendations, and I move that Grant Ritter, Stuart Cohen, and Janet Hall Schempf be reappointed to the Utility Advisory Board for terms beginning immediately and ending May 31st, 2026. And I ask for unanimous consent.
Any objection? Seeing none, they are appointed.
Similarly, we unanimously recommended, and I move to reappoint Paula Drake, Lance Mitchell, and Haifa Farugi to the Juneau Human Rights Commission for terms beginning immediately and ending May 31st, 2026.
Any objection? Seeing none, they are appointed.
Very good. Also for the Juneau Human Rights Commission, I move that John Drips be appointed to an expired seat for a term beginning immediately and ending May 31st, 2025. And that's the Juneau Human Rights Commission again.
Any objection? Seeing none, I think that was a he is appointed.
Thank you. The HRC unanimously recommended that, and I move that that Allison Redford be appointed to the Personnel Board for a term beginning immediately and ending January 31st, 2025.
Any objection? Seeing none, she is appointed.
Very good. Lastly, I move that the Assembly forward to the State of Alaska Emergency Response Commission the appointments of Nathan Rumsey to the Bartley Regional Hospital Seat 5A and Nicole Farron to the Hazmat Transporter Seat 10, both for less than 6-month unexpired terms beginning immediately and ending December 31st, 2023, and for full terms beginning January 1st, 2024 and ending December 31st, 2026 on the Local Emergency Planning Commission. And I ask for unanimous consent.
Any objection? Seeing none, they are appointed.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. That's all the appointments we had tonight.
Thank you for that. Ms. Wall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just wanted to let folks know the school board is meeting tomorrow at 4, which is much earlier than they normally meet. They have had a month of wild budget swings outside of their control. So just thought I'd mention in case people are curious.
Thank you, Ms. Wall. Wahalgadock. Ms. Treem. Ms. Hughes Gandes.
Just want to let people know that at the Lands Committee, we're getting into the landslide and avalanche maps and ordinances. And we already talked about it once on June 26th. And that's a great packet to go back to. It's got a lot of stuff and it's got a lot of links and it has the connections you'll need for all the planning commission materials, which is where you'll want to start. We're going to talk about it again on July 17th at Lands, but highly recommend that for all of us, we start doing the dig in deep homework right now and start asking staff the questions.
Yep, thank you. That's a very complex topic, so appreciate the heads up. Mr. Bryson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Public Works and Facilities met. We discussed safe streets, the Juneau Animal Rescue, and we got our RAISE grant for the North Douglas Crossing. We now have enough money for full design for the North Douglas Crossing. I went to an event and met the new Chancellor of UAS, Ms. Palmer, or Dr. Palmer. And I was one of the grand marshals for the 4th of July parade. That's my report, Madam Mayor.
Congratulations. And I believe we owe a thank you to Senator Murkowski for the raise grant, correct? Yeah. All right, with that, we will go to continuation of public participation on non-agenda items. I don't have anybody signed up. Does anybody in the room want to testify? Seeing no hands, Ms. Tree, would you move us into executive session?
I think Ms. Hale is taking the executive session motion mantle.
Ms. Hale. It's all, here.
Already threw my packet away. I move we recess into executive session to discuss matters that the immediate knowledge of which would defame or prejudice the character or reputation of any person, specifically those individuals invited to interview with the committee and to discuss recruitment examination materials that are confidential. And I ask for unanimous consent.
Any objection? Public have any objection? Seeing none, let's take 5 minutes while the clerks do their switcheroo. We are staying in this room.
Thank you.